Good morning, everybody, and good morning to all the honorable members on the platform. I trust you are all well. Let me just check whether I'm audible. Honorable Bateman, can you hear me?
Yes, Honourable Chair. Good morning to you and
Good
to
morning,
colleagues.
Recording in progress.
Thank you very much. I see that we've already got the FFC on the platform, and I see we've got the team from the South African Local Government Association also on the call. Let me just, in beginning the meeting, and I recognize a number of honorable members who are here. Mashile, can I ask you to, or Denver, if you could put up the agenda for today so that we can move on that score? What we will do is, honorable members, given that today we have two sets of presentations, one by SALGA and one by the FFC, I like to treat them both in the separate order that they deserve, simply because otherwise the questions become complicated. And also, we need to be able to have direct engagements with each one party-wise. So we are going to have to keep this meeting moving at a relatively important pace. So that's the agenda that's been presented before you, and in the order in being SALGA and then the FFC. So can I ask if there's a member who will move for the adoption of this agenda as presented now? In that post the briefings, we'll have deliberations, or we'll have deliberations at the end of the SALGA presentation and have deliberations at the end of the FFC presentation. Otherwise, we never can have a thorough conversation in that regard. Is there a member who would like to move for the adoption of the agenda?
I move, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kwankwa. And then Honorable Kalega Mazibuga, I recognize your hand.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to you. I second the adoption of the agenda, and I also want to bring to your attention, Chair, that as the ANC, we have a new member, Honorable Ntuli, who is going to be a permanent member of Appropriations.
Oh, so the best way to phrase that statement, Honorable Kalega Mazibuga, is that Honorable Ntuli has been promoted to the Premier League. Honorable Ntuli, are you on the platform? Honorable Ntuli, are you on the platform?
Yes, greetings to you, Chair, and all the honorable members. Yes, I am on the platform. Thank you very much.
I wanted to especially welcome you and thank you so much for being part of our committee. I'm going to request in due course that you switch your camera on so that we can see one another. It is protocol within the committee that we all have our videos on when we are speaking. This way we know we're not dealing with AI or any other thing, that we are dealing with the person in question. So welcome, honorable member. I wish you well in the committee. You'll catch us in the midst of a very busy schedule. As you can appreciate, the number of things that are going to be happening in the next while: public consultations on the respective bills, the adoption of the multiple reports and their presentations to Parliament. And so welcome. I wish you well in your endeavor in the committee. Thank you very much. With that agenda duly adopted, honorable members, let me check if there are any apologies on this platform. Denver, have you received any apologies?
Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members, as well as our guests from SALGA and FFC. The apologies that I have received, Chairperson, is from the Deputy Minister of Finance, Honorable Sarpen, Honorable Lekhanyane, and then also an apology from Honorable Bateman, who needs to leave at 12. Chairperson, I haven't received any other apologies. I'm not sure if Mr. Maubane has received anything.
Mashile, are there any apologies on your end?
No, sir. These are the apologies that we've received. Thank you.
Thank you very much. These are from the political parties represented on the platform. Are there any apologies that I need to take note of? Honorable Kalega Mazibuga, I recognize your hand.
I just want to indicate to members and yourself that I'm en route to Parliament from the airport. If maybe I got cut, I will reconnect again, but I am here for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kalaga Mazibuko. Welcome to the Republic of Cape Town. Let me double check in the light of all of that, there being no other apologies. I'm going to recognize the two institutions that are here in SALGA and FFC. I don't know if there are any apologies from either one of those institutions, but given that I will, because of time and time pressures, I really want us to keep this meeting going. Honorable members, as I've requested, I have read through both presentations. Now to both SALGA and the FFC. The SALGA presentation naturally begins with the Constitution and all the frames, the laws. I think, honorable members, we are clear about those points. I don't think we need to spend time on those slides. The principal slides that we will go through really begin to talk to the question about what are some of the, in fact, I will get it here. I think the slide begins with global economic outlook. It looks at what are some of the domestic outlooks, who are the, and the national debt conversation. I mean, that is a conversation we will pick up tomorrow with National Treasury. And then it picks up to which departments owe SALGA and the many conversations that follow on from there. So I really ask honorable members, given the presentation of SALGA, I'm going to allow you half an hour to present. It is now 9:05, and I'm going to ask that by 9:30, we begin engagements with SALGA. Really, I don't think we need an extensive discussion. We do need a discussion. The deliberations matter more than the actual presentation itself, given that some of these discussions are being had in multiple platforms. So debt to GDP, the cost of living conversations we can have. So I'm going to ask that we go that way. Honorable Kalega Mazibuko, is that a legacy hand or is that a new submission? Honorable Kalega Mazibuko?
It's a legacy hand, Chair. Let me drop it. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. So in the light of that, honorable members, I'm going to ask that the team from SALGA, the time is now 9:07. At 9:33, I will request that the presentation be done so that members and we can engage our deliberations with you. So let me recognize the team from SALGA, and then Dr. Mbava, I see that you are here. I'm going to, soon after the presentation and the deliberations for SALGA, will then allow the FFC to proceed. We are hoping to be on time, so you are welcome to stay on the meeting, because I think the conversations will be important so that we don't repeat some of the same information that goes on. I recognize you and welcome to the meeting. Thank you. Let me then begin with SALGA itself. To the delegation from SALGA, let me recognize you. You can proceed.
Thank you very much. My name is Councillor Lindiwe Mahlangu. I'm here representing the SALGA NCOP. For today, I think, let me greet you, Honorable Chair, Honorable members, and also indicate that as SALGA, we are going to do our presentation as per the request by the Chair. Let me also greet SALGA members amongst ourselves, the FFC that is also in the meeting. Let me introduce the person who's going to do presentation on behalf of SALGA. Ms. Lerato Pasha is the one who will be able to make a presentation on our behalf as SALGA. So can we give her an opportunity, Chair, to represent SALGA while we'll be listening to her? Thank you very much.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. Good morning, Honorable members. The Chairperson of the FFC. and the SALGA colleagues and all the other colleagues that are in the meeting. I wanted to check if Denver is going to project on my behalf, or should I do it from my side? We can start from slide 11 as the chair had requested, so that we save time in terms of our presentation. Denver, are you able to project from your side?
To the presenter, it might be on my side, but we will get the presentation going. I appreciate that you've got your video on. I wanted to request that at least we switch the lights on in the room. Otherwise, it looks like you are hiding your identity. So I don't assume the presentation is a secret, or you are trying to present.
No, it's not. Sorry, Chair. I'm in our hotel room. We are busy with our national.
I know you are in KZN, so yes.
Yes. Is it better now?
Masha, I can see who you are. I started to worry that this was a whistleblower report. But
apologies for that, Chair. So we can start on slide 11. But I think much of the anchor of our presentation is just to see the alignment between what was presented at the SONA, what came out from the budget, as well as what was highlighted in the midterm budget. And what we see there is what government is committing to do, particularly in infrastructure, is not translated into local government because of what I've highlighted. I think it was in the background slide, that there is a cut in terms of the infrastructure capacity building program. There has been a cut in the past 2 years in terms of the MIG and to refinance other projects, and they've also discontinuing the a grant that was going to secondary cities. So there is no. It does not translate into government's commitment towards the infrastructure, particularly in local government. So in terms of what the MTBPS pillars and the actions that were stated, as SALGA, we have noted that on the maintaining of the macroeconomic stability goal, on stabilizing of the debt, the focus is only on government dealing with or stabilizing the national budget, the national debt, as opposed to government also looking at the debt problem across the entire government. As you know, Chair, that municipalities are being owed 427 in terms of their consumer debt, as well as the debt that is being owed to water boards and ESCOM. So this is also essentially a problem that we should collaboratively as government have a plan of action, and I highlight what SALGA is doing in terms of trying to resolve this problem. But what we've also seen is Cabinet has resolved and adopted the DAA process. As SALGA, we had submitted that the DAA process needed to follow the Section 78 of the Municipal Systems Act before it's concluded, because that's the legislative process that needs to be provided in terms, that needs to be followed in terms of where municipalities decide on other alternative mechanisms of providing services to its communities. And with the structural reforms, we had engagements with Metro, both technically and politically. There are a number of issues that they have raised. They are seeing the reform as something that is progressive and that will also assist them in terms of improving in the provision of basic services. However, we had asked that the metros be supported in terms of hand-holding, because currently they're just being supported in terms of compliance. This year, they've met, majority of them with the exception of Nelson Mandela Bay, met the requirements of the first phase of the reform, but that was just more of submission of documents and not necessarily implementation of the reforms. And this is what's going to happen now in the second phase, that there needs to be explicit performance incentive to in terms of supporting them when they implement. So some of the issues I'll highlight later in terms of their challenges in terms of implementing this reform. On the capacity building one, the National Treasury is discontinuing the infrastructure skills development grant. This is where we are saying for us to become improve in terms of infrastructure delivery, we still need capacity. And the AG has also raised that municipalities lack capacity in infrastructure project preparation, infrastructure implementation as well. So discontinuing this is counterproductive in terms of that issue. What we then are proposing is also going to come at the end, which is we want the development of an integrated municipal infrastructure capacity program, because currently it's fragmented. Water and sanitation is doing their own programs, Department of Energy is doing their own programs, DCOC is doing their own programs. So there is no impact in terms of having that fragmented approach. So we want an all-inclusive sector infrastructure program. In terms of the investment in growth, we have highlighted that there is what Treasury has highlighted is the 33 billion infrastructure funding that should come. We highlighted in the previous engagements with Parliament that there is 122 backlog in municipalities. So obviously there is no match, and we do understand the fiscal pressures that are there, but it's just to highlight that the backlog and the problem is bigger than what is currently coming. And this 33 billion, it was not necessarily clear how much of it is going to come into local government, except the Metro Trading Services reform, which is what we know of it. But what we are also requesting is with this issue, to increase public-private participation, we're just requesting that there is a development. There's been a delay in terms of developing the municipal-specific PPP framework, which will include the dynamics and the implications to local government, because majority of the municipalities could not access or utilize the framework that is currently being reviewed. So to accelerate that, I think if they make it customized to the municipal environment, we might gain a bit more traction. But what we're also requesting, Chair, is we've seen over the past years, even with the review of the conditional grants, that the conditional grants only take into account, it does not take into account the full cycle of the asset. They only invest, or the grant caters only for the design and the construction of the infrastructure. However, the maintenance, the operations and the maintenance and disposal is not catered for with new investment. We want, for going forward, that this aspect, the full cycle of the asset, should be considered when a grant or a new grant is introduced or formulated. Next slide, please. I'm not going to speak much into the next slide, but just to highlight. Denver, can I go to slide 2? The slide 2 speak to, it's not moving from, okay. So what okay. It's slide 12, sorry, slide 12. So it's just here to highlight that the reality on the ground is we know there is financial decline in municipalities with the consumer debt that I've highlighted, and also municipalities are struggling to finance or budget for that 8% of the value of the asset, not of the value of the budget. And this is we're seeing it as a challenge for continues to be a challenge for municipalities. Slide 13, please. Next, yes. So here is just to highlight the debt problem that we have on a national, and in relation to also the debt problem in municipalities and the cost of living, the rise of the cost of living that impacts, that makes municipality vulnerable to customers that are unable to pay for services. And also the municipalities are squeezed between this ensuring that the debt does not rise from their side, as well as incorporating affordability into the tariff pricing or the cost of services in municipalities. Next slide, please. Chair, this is just to highlight the age analysis, the debtors' age analysis of municipalities. As you know, households are contributing 299 billion to the debt, businesses 91.7, government 24.9. On average, municipalities are collecting 64%. Obviously, it varies from municipality to municipality. Some municipalities are collecting at the 95. Above 95 payment rate. Some obviously are, especially rural municipalities, their collection rate is a bit lower. Next slide, please. Chair, this is what was presented at the IMC that looks into recovery, financial recovery for 10 municipalities that COGTA or the IMC had decided to support or to prioritize in terms of improving their financial status. As we can see that these are the departments that are owing municipalities. In that IMC, we made a couple of proposals that needs to be done. So Public Works highlight is the most owing department in terms of debtors, outstanding debtors for national government. What they have highlighted that there are budget constraints. So Treasury is not allocating sufficient budget to pay municipalities. And there is also the lag between the financial year of departments and the financial year of municipalities. So that 3 months lag is also contributing in terms of the rising debt, the unreconciled asset register, the delayed intergovernmental transfers, and weak, insufficient enforcement of payment agreements. So what we've also done after that meeting is Public Works did do a verification project in 2015, and 146,000 accounts were confirmed to be both on the municipal side as well as the asset registers of. So those 146 is what can be paid. The remaining, Treasury did say that they will help them with financing the verification project for the ones that could not be matched. Next slide, please. This is just to highlight the differences between the MTBPS and the budget and the allocations that come to local government. I'm not going to highlight because this is our daily bread. We will continue to lobby for it. We are thankful that the process of reviewing of the fiscal framework is concurrently running with the review of the white paper. We are hoping the outcomes will be favorable to local government. Next slide, please. Chair, here we just wanted to highlight the growth in the conditional grants that have been coming to local government. Because the vertical allocation does not increase, the horizontal and the allocations to conditional grants also does not increase. We've seen that it ranges between 1 and 7%, and these are the major conditional big infrastructure grants for municipalities. I've highlighted that to solve this problem, and if government indeed is on the infrastructure-focused drive, it should also reflect in the conditional allocation grants that come to local government. And I'll highlight and demystify the issue of the performance, which there are some challenges, but it's not across all municipalities. Some municipalities are spending in terms of their grants. So these are what I've already highlighted in the previous slide, so I don't need to go into it. Next slide, please. So this is what COGTA shared with us at the COGTA MINMAC in terms of the performance of municipalities. Municipal MIG is the largest grant that is given to municipalities for infrastructure, for various infrastructure, mainly water, sanitation, roads, and waste management, and LED, as well as sports facilities. So for the past 3 years, the MIG has been improving in terms of the overall performance. It is sitting now at 93.5%, which is overall, because when you see the amber and the green, it means there is good performance, but we also obviously want to see most municipalities being on the green. And we've seen over the years, Chair, that MIG is being used to refinance other new grants of that National Treasury wants to bring into local government, which is counterproductive, because if we want to meet the backlog that is there, MIG is one of the good grants that helps municipalities to accelerate that infrastructure investment. In the budget forum, they did highlight, although it was not in the statement, they did highlight that they might use MIG to finance the exit packages of councillors who are leaving the system, which we are against. Because it is not aligned with the framework of MIG, and we wouldn't want National Treasury. They should find other monies elsewhere, because this is going to compromise the service delivery that we need as local government. In terms of the IUDG, this is a grant that is given to secondary cities. This is a star performer of the grants within the system. Majority of the municipalities are spending above the 90. The overall is 99.94%. And with George and Steve Chwete spending 100% of their grants throughout the financial years that is there. So what we are proposing is, this is one of the municipalities that has best practices, which we want at SALGA, because we've created a platform for municipalities to twin and share best practices so that they can help each other in terms of improving where there are areas of concern. Next slide, please. I'm going to just quickly run through. These are the capacity grants. Chair, just here to highlight that these are the capacity grants that are supposed to help municipalities to address the capacity challenges. However, we are requesting that they be reviewed so that because we are not really realizing the impact and the scale, the impact in terms of addressing these capacity challenges. So they need to be reviewed and to see whether or not other alternatives can be brought into the system. Next slide, please. Here is just to show that the major grant reforms, the non-metro grant is going to be discontinued, which we are against. The municipal infrastructure grant, automatic conversion of the non-performers. What we are proposing there is there are districts that could take over if they are capable. There are provinces that could take over that, because we want the projects at the end of the day to be delivered to the intended beneficiaries and to stay within the province that it was allocated for. The other ones I've already highlighted, so we can go to the next slide. The increases that we've been receiving into the system, it is at a declining scale, because the inflation is eating up into it. So there is no much of a difference, because we are only receiving around 5% or 4.9% annually in terms of the allocate increases that National Treasury allocates. Next slide, please. So on the appropriation bill, Chair, we welcome the 2 billion that's been allocated to municipalities, and for municipalities who managed to comply, which is all the eight. The 8. Nelson Mandela is the only one that did not receive. But this is what the metros have highlighted as challenges: the issue of staff establishment that is not aligning with the requirements of the reform. So there is misalignment between the two departments when coming to municipal staff regulations. The metros have also highlighted these cross-cutting issues: the cost of supply and tariffing, an issue of affordability. So for the municipalities to be sustainable, these are the issues that they've highlighted. They were saying that the reform is also interacting. It will be running with the incoming administration of council that will be coming from next year. They've also highlighted the issue of raising awareness with the communities, and they said there's still an issue with the buy-in by political constituencies, IGR, as well as business with regards to this reform. The sequencing of the commitments, what they've made in the current councils that made those commitments might not be the same councils that will implement, because of the local government, the new term that's coming into in 2027. The balancing of financial sustainability of trading services, as well as maintaining the corporate, the parent municipality, is also an issue that they've highlighted. Chair, I think that is just, in conclusion, these are the recommendations that we are making. Next slide. I'm not going to go to what SALGA is doing, because we've already we've highlighted it in the previous sessions, but I've just included some of the municipalities that benefited in the hands-on support that we've provided. The recommendations, which is the slide, next slide. Next slide is slide 27. So recommendation number 1, the equitable share. Stats SA has not released the data. So we're still using, for the next budget, we are still going to use the old data, which is from 2011. We want Parliament to hold National Treasury and Stats SA accountable with regards to this issue, because it has serious implications into the equitable share allocations of municipalities. The minister did highlight in the budget forum that they were the ones that did not give Stats SA money to conduct this project. Secondly, we are proposing that development of an integrated all-sector inclusive infrastructure capacity program. We are then saying that the ISDG, that skills program, it should be transferred. It should not be discontinued. It should be transferred to MISA as well as DBSA to implement it, because they are the ones that are experienced in the
we are losing you slightly. I don't know what happened to the connection. Maybe
they've done work with municipalities. They should be able to support municipalities with capacity build. Chair, are you able to hear me?
No, we started to lose you, but now you can. We lost you really as you were going to the next bit about capacity building in municipalities. There was technical problems, so if you can pick it up from there.
Okay, so the integrated program is what we're proposing that it should be done. It should not be fragmented. So each sector should not do it as their own, but it should be an all-inclusive capacity building that deals with sector problems in one. Two, the ISDG that they want to discontinue treasury. We are saying it should be transferred to MISA and DBSA to implement, because they are the experienced one in infrastructure and with proven track records in helping municipalities to improve on infrastructure project prep as well as delivery. We are also requesting that there be a municipal specific PPP framework. This is also a recommendation that the FFC has made in the DORA submission. We are also requesting that the new infrastructure reforms and the grants that will come into the system should take into account the full life cycle of the asset, which is design, construction, operations, maintenance, and the disposal of the asset, so that there is adequate funding for the full value chain of. We are also saying National Treasury should not just discontinue the grants that we cut. We are saying that they should introduce an alternative incentives grant that should benefit the non-metros, because as we know, metros, yes, they are servicing majority of the population, and they have they've got a growth agenda, but it should not also neglect the other municipalities that are non-metro. We are saying, Chair, and we've seen with some of the reforms that are being introduced or that are in Parliament, that the fiscal powers and functions of municipalities should be retrained and enhanced, and should not. National Treasury should not use underfunding, as well as other alternative policy reforms to take this away from municipalities, because we have seen when there were conversions either in Mix 6B, it does not mean that the performance was great from direct to indirect grants. There's still challenges, although water and sanitation indirect grants are performing better. So they've proven that those ones are the indirect grants that are performing. Lastly, Chair, we are requesting Parliament to request government, National Treasury, to withhold the equitable share of government departments that are owing municipalities, because National Treasury is currently using the Constitution as well as the MFMA, which has similar issues as the PFMA. So the law does allow them to withhold to departments that are owing, because municipalities are being withheld if they owe their creditors. Secondly, we are requesting, Chair, that the code of conduct of government officials as well as members of provincial legislation and parliament should not owe municipalities accounts over 90 days. This is to align with the Systems Act, where councillors and staff are not allowed to owe municipalities over 90 days. Yes, the issues of implementing credit control, it's still a challenge of making sure that we collect on all councillors as well as all officials. But municipalities now are deducting directly from the salaries of councillors and its officials. So we want the same this is also to solve the problem of the escalating debt, consumer debt. Chair, thank you. I'm sorry I ate up 8 minutes of your time.
No, you will have to manage how the rest in response, how we deal with some of the questions that come through. Thank you so much for at least in the midst trying to keep to the salient points of the presentation. I think the recommendations become the substance of what our engagement is. What I'm going to request from honorable members, that each member relative to parties will have 10 minutes to ask the questions. And then what will happen post facto is that SALGA will have 5 to respond, and so we'll keep going in that regard. You can use your whole 10 minutes to preach and to do whatever and to ask questions, or you can await responses in the midst of that, so that if there are follow-up questions, we can then go from there. But I want to make sure that we've obviously got a presentation post this. So to SALGA, to the member of SALGA, once a particular party is done, remember you are responding to the committee, not to the party. Just because a member speaks from a particular party is only a function of time management rather than a function of that you are engaging. So really what is, particularly in this context, on a virtual platform, it does become a bit tricky to try and make sure that our time is managed carefully. But what I will do, I recognize Honorable Waitlin, I recognize Honorable Mkonto, and then Kalega Mazibugo, and then obviously Kamete, I recognize you there. I don't think there are any other hands that I see on this platform. Honorable Waitlin, you can use your 10 minutes between you and and other members, Honorable Bateman, and then we can proceed from there. This way we can make sure that we utilize both the time for questions, but also make sure that we've got enough time to deal with the FFC presentation. So I will beg your indulgence, honorable members. We have to be disciplined today. We have a lot of work to get through. Over to you, Honorable Bateman. Your time with the DA starts now. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm going to hit straight into the recommendations from SALGA. And I must be honest with you, there are two themes here that jumps at me, and I'm quite concerned. The first one is that I get a sense that SALGA has, just in general, has started passing the buck on a number of matters that are actually mandated by local government. So that's the first thing, that they are passing the buck on a number of issues. The second matter I want to talk to is just maybe give feedback on my own comments around the recommendation, and then I'll read into the questions. Chair, as far as the data and equity, we 100% agree with SALGA that the 2011 stats are completely out of date. However, Chair, the problem that relies with that, if we're going to rely on the new data, my sense tells me that we're going to give more money to metros as opposed to the current municipalities that are struggling. And I would like to have SALGA to comment on that. Because people are moving, and there are statistical analysis being done that by 2050, that 50% of people will be living in metros as opposed to smaller municipalities, and we already see a drive out of smaller towns. So that would not assist. Even if we do the adjustment, in fact, it will be worse. As far as capacity and governance and the passing the buck matter, particularly around where there's a request that we would be utilizing more of for instance, what's a bank? Sorry, I've just lost my track of thought now. As far as utilizing DBSA as an example to do a lot of the project management, we are currently sitting with a lot of qualified project managers that are in municipalities that are not doing the work. And my concern lies in, if we're going to start passing the buck and start outsourcing all of these work to DBSA and the likes, my request is simple. Then, in that case, that we can start asking people to start resigning, and we are going to completely outsource all the matters as far as project management is concerned. On that matter, Chair, if I may request a comment from SALGA, and as far as the implementation of the metro trading services and the impact thereof, and how is the rollout slow? Where are we? There is a commitment made by National Treasury that once the business units are created, particularly with electricity and water, that there will be much more funding, better funding coming through. And we would like to know what is SALGA's position on that, and why, or where are they with regards to the implementation of these metro trading services? And that directly relates back to the project management thereof. There is a notion that says, Chair, that we as a government are saying that MEC grants will only be related directly to performance. In the sense I get is that, again, SALGA saying, no, you can't do that. And I would like to have the comments on that. As far as our position is concerned, it's very clear. If people, we will only give more money to those municipalities that are performing, as opposed to those that don't perform, because we have seen these are trends that we can pick up over many years of municipalities, very particular municipalities that are not doing their job. And they're expecting more, but they're doing less. And I would like SALGA to comment on that. Chair, let me go into my questions, and as far as the things that I am very concerned about. The first one is obviously the pension fund contribution non-adherence from a number of municipalities, and the impact that got on the staff and the morale of staff. I would like to know what SALGA's position on that is, because to me that is going to become a very big concern as far as getting people to start doing their work because their pension funds are not paid. And Chair, then I would like to know, as far as I spoke about the migrant adjustment, just a quick comment and just a view of SALGA. We saw now with the G20, which was very successfully launched, and we are very appreciative of the G20 that actually ran well. And my compliments to the President and his people. My concern lies in that what is SALGA's comments or position? Why is it when the G20 happens that we see a lot of work happening in a metro like Johannesburg, but beyond that, we are seeing nothing get done? And how does SALGA take that up, and what will they do about that? I mean, that is clearly a problem with Joburg, in particular Joburg, when they receive funding to do work. They have not done it for years, and then suddenly they do. And I just want to get a sense of what their position is on this. Then, Chair, on a matter of Section 2162 interventions, what it is basically a Section 216/2 intervention is where National Treasury withheld funds, and I see that they are not speaking to that matter. I would like to know how many municipalities currently is not going to go through this 2162 intervention, and what is their view on that particular. Chair, then lastly, the matter of Eskom debt. I see that Eskom has now started preparing to take over a large number of municipalities' debt and start controlling and managing these infrastructure or this services to communities. What is SALGA's position on this matter, and what are they going to do to prevent that? Because again, it's passing the buck to Eskom to collect on behalf of municipalities, which I think is completely irrational. It should be done by municipalities if they are effective. Then I would like to know, and I agree with just a comment on the PPP framework, that it must be included and it be finalized by the government to ensure that a proper municipal PPP framework is in place. Chair, we see chronic underspending, weak project management, and dealing with corruption or not dealing with corruption, the underlying factors of the non-performance of municipalities. I would like to see SALGA to clearly state what their position is on chronic underspending, weak project management, and what are they going to do about this corruption that we can't get arrested. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Bateman. Honourable Wakelin, I don't know if Honourable Bateman has got any questions, but let me allow SALGA to respond. You got SALGA, you can start your responses now to the respective questions there put forth.
Chair, I also have Lance Joe in the meeting. He will assist with some of the questions that were posed, if you allow. Let me start with the passing. Of course,
but you need to be conscious of time, and then when I switch my camera back on, just need to know you need to start wrapping up your responses. So you will have about 8 minutes to respond. You can go.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So on the issue of the metros and the rural, Chair, in the submission of the equitable share, we are saying the equitable share formula should take into account the differentiation aspect of the municipalities, and also the formula takes into account there is a component of the formula that is the revenue raising capacity. So metros in the formula will have a higher revenue raising capacity as opposed to a lower revenue raising capacity for rural municipalities, so that rural municipalities benefit more from the equitable share. Another component is the institutional capacity component of the equitable share is more for rural municipalities. But what we are requesting in the review is that there must be differentiation of taking the context of the different types of municipalities, as opposed to what the formula is doing currently, so that the municipalities that don't have much of the revenue raising capacity benefits from the equitable share. So the formula will then resolve the problem of allocation. Yes, the population and the households, the metros will have a higher, but the formula will be in such a manner that it does not compromise both the municipalities, because the metros are also saying that the population that they're inheriting are not necessarily economically active population, they are indigent as well. So Treasury said in the new review, the review of the formula, we will consider those nuances in there. So the one of the DBSA and MISA, we are not saying DBSA must come and implement the projects. We are saying National Treasury is discontinuing this grant, this capacity grant, and it will no longer exist. But what we are saying is from what the AG has raised, from the Section 71 performance, there is a capacity component that needs to be accelerated in municipalities. Then we are saying, instead of discontinuing it, because Treasury was the one that was managing it, give it to the experts to help you with implementing this grant, so that it better benefits the municipalities. And this grant, we are saying, Chair, Honourable Wickling, that it will help with this weak underspending, because majority of the municipalities, the challenges in terms of the assessments that have been done over the years, it is project preparation, which we at SALGA have started a capacity program with UCT, and we've highlighted it last year, so that municipalities can prepare projects in such a way that they will not be, it will be multi-year, and it will also help them with bankability, but it will also help them with how they can better implement and spend on the grants. So it's not to say that MISA and DBSA will implement the projects, but to help municipalities with capacity building, so that this grant can continue to benefit municipalities as opposed to it being discontinued. The Metro Trading Services, the progress is the first phase of the Metro Trading Services has been I think it's finalized, because the 2 billion was as a result that is allocated in the bill is as a result of submission. It's only National Mandela Bay that did not benefit. The second phase now is on implementing the commitments that Council resolved in terms of implementing. But I've highlighted those issues that they're currently having, because with implementation, the staff regulations or staff implications do not align the COCTA regulation as well as what the reform is. So that is where they are stuck with implementing that component. And they're also saying the issue for what is required now is they will need to do the cost of supply studies, and the outcomes of the cost of supplies for those that have done. It's unaffordable for its consumers. So the balancing between affordability and making the service sustainable is a challenge. That is what they've also realized. They will need to also bring the communities on board in terms of these reforms and what its intended outcomes is. Obviously, if the cost of supply studies says it's going to the tariffs are going to be increased, communities need to know what are the implications of these reforms. Chair, I'm sorry, the debt Eskom to debt, we asked the Eskom taking over. We were against this the DAA in its current form. We had asked for legal opinion on it. And we also saying the process must work with the legal framework, the legislative framework of the Section 78. So, however, National Treasury and ESCOM went ahead against what, because if you look at the document, it favors ESCOM and it does not favor municipalities. Chair, I was unable to take over to speak on the pension fund and the G20, which I wanted Lance to highlight.
No, let Lance, I can give Lance another, there's 2 minutes here. Lance, if you can speak to one of those, both of those, please.
Well, greetings, Chairperson, to yourself and all honourable members of the committee, and thanks for the opportunity. I will address 2 things. The first one, I think SALGA is in agreement with Honourable Wakeling that particularly around the concerns of the inability of municipalities to service their statutory deduction payments. It is not limited, well, based on our assessment, it's not limited to pension fund contributions. It's extended to medical aid contributions, even pay-as-you-earn contributions that ought to be paid over to SARS, etc., etc., etc. And at the core of this problem, Chairperson, is what we are also talking about, the 316 billion as at the end of June that is owed to municipalities is contributing to the liquidity of municipalities, the availability of cash to make these statutory deduction payments. So that's partly what is contributing to this difficulty that municipalities are experiencing. And we have been standing on top of the buildings, calling for households, business, but also for government to service their debt to municipalities, because the inability of municipalities to collect impact quite negatively on its ability to service its own obligations. And I think we would also call upon Honourable Chair, yourself, and these members of this committee to also join us in calling for debts that are owed to municipalities to be serviced, such that we can also respond to the second issue raised by Honourable Wakeling around the unsustainability of the provision of services. One of the biggest acknowledgements, certainly, that we have heard this weekend coming from the city of Johannesburg, and perhaps also 2 months back from the city of Tshwane, when they hosted a mayoral gathering under the guise of the G20, is that there's much to be done to ensure that services are sustained and not limited and or jacked up when we're dealing with the hosting of big international events. It's an acknowledgement that is being made. It is a commitment that we would want to make as SALGA. This week, we are meeting in Durban, as you have said, Chairperson, at the beginning. And one of the conversations we would want to have with municipalities is how do we sustainably provide services to communities such that it doesn't feel special when there are international guests within our areas. And so that is a commitment we are seeking this week from our members. And I will pause there. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Lance. What I'm going to request is that there were some 1 or 2 questions that were not responded to earlier on. I'm going to note them, and then hopefully at the end, if there's time, we will then allow for their responses to those. Or when sometimes you find there's opportunities when other parties are asking questions for some time to be on the table. So let me recognize Honorable Mkhonto to go next this way, because we've got, as I said, honorable members, we've got a long agenda on the go, so I want to try and keep us to time. Honorable Mkhonto, your 10 minutes starts now. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning to you, Chair, honorable members, our guests, SALGA, and our staff. Chair, I will start by asking this question from SALGA. Do they have a skills audit report for all the municipalities? Because we can't talk about skills development when we don't know exactly the level of the skills of the people that are serving in municipalities, both the councillors and the officials. When we want skills to be developed, whom exactly are we developing? For what purpose? I agree, Chair, that the skills fund must not be discontinued because SALGA needs it. Next year is local government elections. But if, Chair, maybe they can focus specifically in terms of councillors, if they can focus on the new councillors that are coming, because the ones that we have now are almost at the end of their term. Number two, Chair, is the issue of municipalities not broadening their revenue collection base. They have a lot of informal settlements that are not paying basic services because they don't have. So, Chair, I don't hear in their plan talking about them broadening their revenue collection base. They are requesting funds from the National Treasury, of which is normal, but at local government, they have powers to collect revenue maximally. So, Chair, my question is, do they have any plans in both metros and small municipalities to broaden their revenue collection base? The last one, Chair, is the issue of councillors and municipal officials being, I don't know whether, Chair, is the correct word, being a little bit coerced to pay their basic services from the municipality to the municipalities. Chair, maybe it happens in the metros. I don't think it happens in the small municipalities. So SALGA has to assist us. Or maybe my question could be, does that happen in the whole of South Africa, or it just happens in the metros? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mkonto. Just by way of process, Honorable Members, can I just ask Honorable Mkonto, you've left us with 5 minutes. I want to request if Honorable Gallagher Mazibuko can use some of this time, because we are collaborating also with the Finance Committee, and as many members would know, especially when there's consideration of reports, we have to share across both. So, Honorable Gallagher Mazibuko, can I recognize you now so that you can proceed? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you very much for your understanding. Chair, my first concern, as I thank SALGA for the presentation, would be on the funds, especially the grant that is not spent by the municipality. It is a worrying factor, Chair, and one would want to know what the consequences are there in place for the money that goes back to Treasury, and yet there are so many problems within the municipality. And the refinancing of the MIG grant by Treasury to the exit packages for councillors, it is unacceptable, Chair. You know, Chair, we have dilapidating infrastructure in the municipalities, and we cannot allow this to happen. And besides, the grant is legislated, and it has to be used accordingly. And Chairperson, my other worry is about the municipalities that are owed by the departments, public works being on top, and therefore I agree with the recommendation that has been put by SALGA in terms of the allocation to those departments that are owing municipalities, I do second their recommendation. But also flip the coin. The municipalities that are owing, I think Honorable Wakelin has touched on this, that are owing Water Board and ESCOM. And ESCOM had the debt relief program, and there were requirements, and the municipalities did not meet the requirements. So what have SALGA done in terms of those municipalities that could not meet this requirement of the debt relief program? And Chair, on the owing by the departments, I just want to add that Treasury cannot put the issue of different financial years as an excuse. Municipalities must be paid. And on the review of the white paper, we do appreciate the fact that at least there's movement. But one would want to know how far is the review of the white paper. And I heard the councillor, the MMC, saying they hope that the outcome will be favorable to local government, which then brings the question to me of the role of SALGA, because whatever the outcome should be what the SALGA has proposed, has put in place, as one would think that SALGA has been at the center of this review. So SALGA therefore cannot be hoping. The review of the capacity grant, as much as one agrees with it, yes, I agree, because we need capacity at that level. But my question is, have you diagnosed the problem? Because if it is a matter of management, even if the capacity grant can be reviewed, we will still have the same problem. We won't be able to have a solution. So have you diagnosed what the problem, what the problem is? And the formula on the, I think Honorable Mkonto has touched on the issue of the formula, that it has to, mine is to say that the formula should recognize the migration. Metros, as much as I support the capacitation of rural municipalities, but people are moving to urban areas, to cities, and in fact, yes, as you say, they are not economically active, and they settle at informal settlements and utilize the basic services without paying to them. I think the formula should also recognize that fact. Lastly, Chair, on the Stats SA, I think this committee will have to have a session with Stats SA, because we cannot rely on 2011 data, Chair, as Honorable Wakelin has correctly said, that people are migrating, especially to the cities and also from the rural areas. So, I think we'll have to assist SALGA in this regard by getting answers from SA as to why are they taking so long to release the latest data. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kalagamazibuga and Honorable Mkonto. May I allow SALGA, you have your time, you can respond now. You'll have 6 minutes and then we go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. On the issue of the skills audit, we have done educational profiles of municipal councillors. Out of the 9,000, we did 3,600. It does not constitute a skills audit, but it gives us an indication of areas that needs how we can well capacitate them. It's something that we take note of that we should consider. On the administrative side, we are also guided by the AG outcomes in terms of the skills gap that they've identified and the areas of concern, which most of our capacity building programs is geared towards, especially from the finance perspective, where we capacitate the MPEC as well as the disciplinary boards. In that area. So on the broadening of the revenue, so what we have done, what came out of the study, there was the inefficiency side. So we've started helping municipalities on the non-revenue and non-revenue water and electricity. We are currently doing assessment of how much of these distribution losses is contributed by. Is it people stealing? Is it the infrastructure? that is decayed and no longer do what it's intended to do? Is it billing challenges? So by next year, I think when we come for the budget, we'll be in a better position to say how much, because for an example, the non-revenue water and electricity, sometimes for some municipalities, 50% of their revenue. So once we know and we can help municipalities diagnose the problem, then we'll move into how do they reduce or how do they attend to those issues. The payment of councillors, some municipalities, we don't have a full data set, but most municipalities now, we have encouraged them to adopt this best practice of deducting directly from the salaries of councillors and making sure that when officials exit the system or the municipality, they don't pay out their pension before they pay for the outstanding. The underspending, Chair and Honourable Member, it was only on what we've diagnosed at SALGA is the issue of project preparation, that municipalities are not preparing project in such a way that ensures implementation and delivery and also bankability. We've started with that problem. There are a number of other problems such as the SEM delays, such as the construction mafias, and such as oversight in terms of project management that councillors should. So internally, we started with project prep, and then we'll move to other challenges. The debt relief, as we have said, that we want the DAA to be to not only favor, because in the DAA, Eskom will be operating on the infrastructure of municipalities, and should anything happen to that infrastructure, Eskom will not be liable for any repairing if there are any eventualities there. So what we want is a legal opinion to show that that process is legally binding. We want the Section 78 to be followed, because that's the only legal framework that we have when a municipality decides on a service provider to come and provide that service on their behalf as a service authority. I'll leave the white paper process to Lance. Thank you, Chair. I hope I was able to. And the other issue on the revenue, we are doing internally at SALGA to request all the SALGA officials not to owe, but we're also doing a CISHO, which is a campaign that helps municipalities with incentive schemes, with elevating the collection of payment and educating consumers in terms of, we want in the next financial year to contact NBI to help with the business debt that businesses owe municipalities. Thank you, Chair. Lance can come through on the white paper and the rest that I do not cover. Thanks.
To be brief, the white paper review process is led by COPTA as a department, and the process is ongoing. The intention is still to emerge by the end of March next year with a revised draft white paper. And there's a lot of work that is happening, and SALGA is intricately involved in that process. It does, at this early juncture, seem, Chairperson, that there are a number of areas that will be revised, particularly around the form and shape of local government, and how the structure could be improved to better respond to the needs of communities. The last point, Chair, I wanted to add the point that was asked by Honourable Konto and the work that...
Lance, I'm not sure if your internet has deteriorated in the last while.
Is that so, Chair? I sincerely...
Maybe if you switch the video off and then respond.
Let me do that. Let me do that. So just the add-on, the Chairperson, around the preparation of new councillors coming in when we're looking at skills. As SALGA, we are calling on political parties to ensure that the right people are deployed by political parties come the next elections. Because we do feel that the complexities of local government are underestimated. And we do call that the appropriately skilled, qualified, and experienced people are sent and deployed to municipalities to take over this huge responsibility. And so half of the work should be done by political parties. We will come on board post the elections to do the induction of councillors, but also the ongoing training of councillors based on the portfolio-related expertise that is required. But the starting point is calling on political parties to identify the right people to take over this key responsibility of councillors at the local government level. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for the responses there. Let me recognize Honorable Mwali, and then lastly will be Honorable Kwangwa. So let me start with you, Honorable Mwali. Your 10 minutes will begin now. Over to you.
Chair, may you please recognize Honorable Kamete first, and then I'll take the last.
Oh, I apologize. Yes, I had recognized Honorable Kamete first. You are correct, Honorable Member. So in that correction, let me start with Honorable Kamete. Your 10 minutes collectively will go through now. Thank you.
Hey, Chairperson, you are dividing the caucus, the progressive caucus.
It is not my intention to do so. Neither is it my intention to appoint any deputies going forward. So you can proceed, Dr.
Okay, no problem, Chairperson. No, let me quickly. I'll take less than 3 minutes so that my fellow comrade will also finish within our 10 minutes. No, for me, the most critical observation in this structural misalignment between the high-level developmental commitments made in the State of the Nation's address and the subsequent fiscal instruments on the medium-term budget policy statement. This misalignment characterized by the grant reduction, slower baseline growth, and the discontinuation of key grants like infrastructure skills development, the SDG, directly undermines the capacity of municipalities to deliver on their expanded mandates, thereby creating a significant operational and financial risk at the grassroots level. Chairperson, on the fiscal compact and also on the autonomy, given the SALGA's assertion that local government should be recognized as a co-equal partner in the National Fiscal Compact, how can the Division of Revenue Act and the medium-term budget policy statement be structurally reformed to ensure that the fiscal framework genuinely supports municipal autonomy and developmental mandates, rather than treating local government as a subordinate implementer of the national policy? The last one, Chairperson, on the long-term sustainability, considering the 416.1 billion municipal debt crisis, the chronic underspending on infrastructure maintenance, which is 3% versus the recommended 8%, and the downward revision of local government share on the national revenue, what immediate or non-negotiable interventions are required to shift municipalities from a cycle of fiscal distress and deferred maintenance to one of the long-term financial and service delivery sustainability? Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me allow my fellow comrade, Honorable Mwali, to come in at a later stage. If you still do have time, I'll come back with my recommendations. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable Kamede. Chair, I won't greet, I'll just shoot straight in the interest of time. I want to invite a comment from SALGA Chair on one of the highlights from AG, the overuse of consultants by municipalities. They end up with a situation whereby they are outsourcing their very co-function or in the municipalities. So I want to invite a comment there, because that, if that can be corrected, that those funds can be redirected to go towards a service delivery, which is the co-function of the municipalities. Number two, on the incapacity of MPEX, you know, Chair, this allows for consequence management to not be implemented, because if there's incapacity in MPEX, which then MPEX investigate these unauthorized and irregular expenditures and take action against those who are charged or those who are responsible. If they're not capacitated, then you end up, Chair, with a situation whereby we see an escalating number of on UIFWE, but that is not investigated and no one is held accountable. So I want to invite a comment there. Also, Chair, one of the things that has been highlighted strongly by AG is the poor record keeping in the municipality. This is a basic function of finance units in the municipalities. And also the late submission of financials, even when they have been submitted, those financials, the poor quality does not speak to the amount of money that the municipality is paying on the use of consultants to prepare those financials. And then the question is there value for money? Because if you are going to be spending billions and millions in local municipalities for paying consultants, but you are also getting no value on the quality of financial statements and also the skills transfer, because this reliance was at the time as a result of the strategic objective was to say we are going to be transferring skills, but we have not seen any transfer of skills. Instead, we've seen more and more and more reliance on consultants. So I want to invite a comment there. And also the political interference that cripples basic administration in the municipalities. You see, one of the issues that we are sitting with, we are coming here, we're discussing the MTPPS, and they're making, SALGA is making very, very, very valuable recommendations. However, some of the key issues in the municipality is the maladministration that is being experienced, it's the corruption that is there, it's the incapacity of those who are charged with government, who are governance, and also those who are responsible to implement or who are supposed to be running the municipalities. As a result, we experience irregular and fruitless and wasteful expenditure. As a result, we experience no service delivery on these municipalities. On slide number, on the slide where they talk about background, they say they are going to strengthen the capacity, the municipal capacity. I want to check from SALGA, what is that have done to strengthen the capacity of the municipality and also to improve governance and professionalization? The question is, what is it that they've done? And it also goes back to the mandate of the SALGA, that really, if you see the performance of the municipality, you even wonder if SALGA exists or even SALGA has any inputs towards making this picture of the municipalities look better, because instead the picture is getting worse and worse. The water losses and electricity losses are as a result of dilapidated infrastructure. And when we see unspent grants that are going back to Treasury, really you see it's an injustice to our people. Because if you are going to see unspent grants going back and you see National Treasury holding certain grants towards municipalities because they are not spending, and you see the lives of the people who are supposed to be serviced by these municipalities, really doesn't talk to each other. And also on some cases, you see municipalities using the entire budget, but when you look at the targets that have been achieved, less targets. So I want a comment there on. Also, one last one, Chair, on slide 16. Slide 16, they say the municipalities are not getting any, or they're getting less than 10% allocation on the total budget. And the MTBPS is the reviews are actually taking them down. And they made a comment there that even the percentage stays flat, the real purchasing power declines and municipalities' budgets become more constrained. I agree with that. The infrastructure and maintenance gets deferred and service delivery deteriorates. But this position can be argued, Chair, that this is not only because they are getting less from national government as in allocation, but the main thing, or one of the things that deteriorates service delivery, is the fact that there's poor governance of the municipalities. Then it becomes very difficult if you come into this committee and want support as towards more allocations towards the local government. Whereas if you look on the other end, the performance, the administration of local government is really not properly supported or not properly run. So, Chair, let me stop there.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Can I allow SALGA? You will have time about, I think it's about 5 minutes to respond to that. And then we will take Honorable Kwankwa last and then move on to the next presentation. So if you can proceed from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So on the fiscal framework, what our proposal is, it's what we've made last year, the outcomes of our study, that we are underfunded, as well as the inefficiencies. We recognize the inefficiencies within the system. We need an increase of up to between 13.5 and 18.7%. Secondly, we recognize the inefficiencies which are high in terms of the staff, as the organograms, bloated overheads in the staff costs, the non-revenue water and electricity, the wasteful and UIFW, the wasteful expenditure that is there. Currently, we are dealing with the inefficiencies in the system. As I said, we are trying to address the non-revenue water, what is contributing to it. Once we know what is contributing to it, we will then allocate the solutions and also request additional support if additional support is required. The repairs and maintenance issue, it is directly linked to the budgets of the municipalities. If municipalities are not raising sufficient revenues to cover the 8% of the value of the assets. So for an example, if the value of the asset is 10 billion, I'm just giving an example, 8% of that value is what they need to cater for in the budget, which is not what the current budgets can accommodate. Hence, we are requesting that while municipalities, we are encouraging them to start prioritizing in their budgets the repairs and maintenance that is required. Equally, we are saying the new grants, infrastructure grants that are coming into the system needs to incorporate the operations and the maintenance, because we are currently only receiving the design and the construction money, but no one worries about how that asset is going to be operated, how that asset is going to be maintained, and when it comes to the end of its cycle, how it's going to be disposed. That is the second submission that we're making on the repairs and maintenance. We were also made a proposal that the repairs, that maybe a repairs and maintenance grant that is blended by the municipal budgets as well as performance grant just on the maintenance that National Treasury should consider. So municipalities need to allocate certain amount into their budget and then Treasury to augment whatever is a certain amount so that we can start driving the repairs and maintenance. The use of consultants, there's two types of consultants. There's the one on the project management and the ones in the finance and other related ones within the municipality. On the finance one, we have gone on a drive this year to capacitate municipal officials to draft internally the AFS, as well as reviewing. The reviewing part was capacitating the internal audits within municipalities, hoping that it will address the problem of not utilizing financial consultants to draft and also to review. They'll only do a high-level review requirements from the consultants just to get an objective overview, but to draft it must be internally done. Then we'll move to the other. The issue of the consultants is what the AG also says. It's not that it's how you use the consultants. If you use them and they don't deliver, that is incorrect. So the other issue that we've observed is contract management that we need to assist municipalities with, so that municipalities can better manage their contracts. And if they don't deliver, there are strict clauses within the agreements that make sure that they are able to part ways with the non-performers with that regard. The political interference and the capacity building component is what we're currently looking at. Is SALGA does provide capacity building. The issue that we are unable to determine is application of the learned from the sessions that we had conducted, which is something that we are considering going into the new term of office to ensure that it incorporates assessment after the capacity has been provided to either officials and political principals. I'll leave the political interference to Lance. Yes, there needs to be value of money in terms of what municipalities procure from service providers. Hence, contract management becomes very critical and capacitating municipalities that their contracts include that aspect into them. Lance can take over the political interference.
Yeah, Lance, if you can be brief, I would appreciate that because we are now under time pressure.
No, very brief, Chairperson. Earlier we spoke about the review of the white paper on local government. One of the key things that is emerging is around political interference in the administration, drawing a clear line between the political arm and the administration within a municipality. And there are key proposals that are emerging within that space. I'm sure members would be exposed to the detail once it is released next month, but there is a specific response that is emerging from the review of the white paper. Thanks.
You are covered there, Lance. Let me now recognize lastly Honorable Kwankwa. You can have your respective time starting now. You've got 10 minutes. Both must include questions and answers, so just keep that in mind.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thanks to SALGA for that presentation. Quite a number of points I wanted to raise have been raised by our colleagues. For example, Honorable Wakeling asked a very important point, but I think I want to approach it slightly differently around the conditional grants for municipalities or grants in general. For example, it would be great to get an indication because there have been a number of grants which were introduced in the past, some suspended for non-performance, others discontinued for various reasons. How is SALGA responding to that? Do you have a macro snapshot of that, of the grants, for example, which have been either reviewed, where it's loss of funding from the Treasury for the local government sphere, and be able to explain how that has impacted the local government sphere in terms of it being able to discharge its mandate? Honorable Mkhonto did ask a very important question about revenue generation or revenue collection of the municipalities in order to help to reduce debt and also create municipalities that are viable from an economic perspective. The question I want to ask, what steps is SALGA taking or interventions is SALGA making to ensure that municipalities do have the necessary capacity to be able to collect revenue and to help municipalities to actively reduce their debts? I want to ask, when it comes to underperformance, does SALGA have a performance dashboard of the various municipalities to say, as well as the interventions that you have? For example, municipalities that have lost funding or some other grant from National Treasury. I mean, we read about that almost on a daily basis in the news, where funding is withdrawn by Treasury for underperformance. And what kind of interventions then do you put in place in order to address those weaknesses in those municipalities? And do you then get to a point where once you've made interventions where the Treasury is willing to provide financial assistance in terms of those grants again to the municipalities? So are your interventions also working in that respect? The other one is, surely then linked to that would be the question of clean audits and putting the governance system in place. What kind of support does SALGA play in that regard? Are the initiatives working? I can understand how the capacity building grant can be reviewed or removed completely when all that we complain about consistently when it comes to the local government sphere is a lack of capacity. But the feeling I get is that it's that the local government sphere does not enjoy the same respect that the other spheres of government enjoy. It's almost like tomorrow Treasury can just simply wake up and decide to review or discontinue a grant, and you must go there with a begging bowl and make a case, as if that money is not money which is supposed to be given to the local government sphere for specific service delivery issues that are very important. I don't understand this arrangement where even ESCOM can wake up to its own thing, Treasury can wake up and say we're reviewing, we're discontinuing, as if the local government sphere is completely disempowered to be able to fight for that which belongs to it. It's probably the framework that gives it grants. Some of the municipalities, for example, still have challenges with building system and asset management. Is SALGA helping insofar as that is concerned? If my memory serves me well, there were still some challenges, for example, at Buffalo City Municipality. I think plans were being put in place to try and address those issues. But what is SALGA doing insofar as that is concerned? Lastly, Chair, not so long ago, I think ministers of finance would often complain, especially during the period of Minister Tito Mboweni, where there was inadequate planning capacity at municipality level. In other words, municipalities would plan for resources they don't have, right? Have unrealistic and very ambitious plans, and that at times will be reflected in the IDPs and the SDFs. The question is, does SALGA play a role in terms of ensuring that the IDFs for the municipalities in particular are realistic in terms of the objectives that can be achieved, and that they know that they have the finances required to be able to implement whatever programs they are planning for that particular, whether it's a financial year, over whatever period or time frame that is relevant for the municipality? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will allow SALGA, you have 5 minutes to respond.
Thank you, Chair. The conditional grant assessment this year, it's actually on my KPI to assess how the grants have been performing, which grants were discontinued for what reason. Currently, I will not be able to give you because the report is not yet complete. But in the budget next year, when we come back, we should be able to provide what is the assessment of those grants and why were they discontinued, which new ones did they bring, and how did they perform. The revenue collection, I think I've already highlighted where we are supporting municipalities is raising awareness in terms of importance of paying, as well as the distribution losses that are currently being incurred in the system. But we're also now raising the awareness of collection of debt from government and government officials, including ourselves, staff of SALGA. The dashboard of underperforming interventions, we don't necessarily have a dashboard yet. And it's something that we've been trying to develop over, but it's not yet finalized, where we want to have a profile of all municipalities with all the indicators that Treasury looks at, that the various sectors looked at, and the performance of it, so that we, at any given time, we are able to pick up on the performance. We only have a dashboard that only speak about the indicators on the local government performance that was done by COCTA, as well as the audit outcome at this stage. We have a municipal audit support program. That support program is focusing on 4 pillars: institutional capacity, leadership, financial management, as well as governance. So that is a holistic approach in terms of looking at the issues of audit. We have selected 18 municipalities last year. 5 of them improved in terms of their audit outcomes. What we are targeting this year is we are hoping to see more than the 5 that we had to move out of. But the other critical factor is we have the majority of the municipality in the 18 have reduced their findings, which is something that is the first target. And after the findings are reduced, material findings are reduced, then that will have implications in terms of improving the audit outcome. Asset management, we've only been focusing on the compliance side of asset management, assisting municipalities to comply the asset registers that are in line with GRAD standards. But we have seen now that we need to start tapping into assisting municipalities with asset management, which has implications into the repairs and maintenance and asset planning, future planning of those assets. It's something that we are considering at the moment. We've only been assisting municipalities with complying with the GRAD standards, but now we need to move into asset management and asset planning. Plans on unfunded budgets. We firstly are helping municipalities to comply with the joint circular on COCTA and National Treasury, in terms of making sure that the municipalities increase on the unfunded budgets, reduce being on the unfunded budgets. We have taken an approach of best practices. For an example, 20 last year, it was unfunded. This year, it's funded. So we are aligning municipalities that are like-minded in terms of helping them to see how the others have done it, so that they can equally improve on those aspects. And I think I can leave the others to Lance to take, if I didn't take any of the questions. Yes, I think on the issue of being underfunded and begging, sometimes it does feel like as local government, we are not being treated equally. And we have seen it with the withholding of the equitable grant, equitable share, where government is not being withheld for owing municipalities, but municipalities is being withheld for owing its creditors. Thanks.
I'm not sure. There are no additions from my side, Chair. Sufficiently covered. Thanks.
What? Honorable Kwankwa, you seem to have a follow-up. Is that a legacy hand?
Aye, Chairperson, it's a legacy hand. Thank you.
My question, maybe it's a brief one, because there's a lot that we can cover here, but I'm very conscious of time. But I wanted to get an understanding from SALGA's point of view. The public transport network grant has been withdrawn, if not suspended. I want to understand from your perspective. There clearly are infrastructural deficits to this issue, but I think, to me, strategically as a country, this is a direction we ought not to be going, because as per the budget in February, we spoke extensively about the fact that what limits money supply, at least for many households, you talk about households who owe you money in the report, the harsh reality of it is that money is spent in transport going to and from work. But I don't hear too much. I see it in your slides, but it isn't mentioned as a red flag about the withdrawal of that grant. And not that it was being utilized to its fullest extent, but clearly part of SALGA's vision must be to develop a very sophisticated integrated public transport network in municipalities. Where are we at with that issue? Because I think the other questions have been dealt with by colleagues, but it's just to me a macroeconomic conversation to have with SALGA, because it seems like we are regressing. We talk about infrastructure build, but we don't talk about public transport infrastructure build. I don't know if you can respond to that briefly, Honourable Member, and then I want to move on to the next presentation, given the time constraints. I could have many more questions about EAA conversation. I want to have more conversation. There are a number of issues here I wanted to pick up on, particularly even just the 1 trillion rands infrastructure that's been spent, capacity questions in that regard. But let me not lie, let me talk transport for 1 second.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Maybe Lance will come after that, since you've posed we have seen that the metros are struggling with the transport grants as well as the human settlements grants. I actually spoke to my colleagues who are responsible for transport. One of the issues that they have raised was the issue of project capacity within the project preparation aspect of those grants. That's one. Two, the issue of the supply chain delays in terms of ensuring that they appoint the service providers well in time, so that the projects can start and finish at its intended time. Secondly, what they've also raised was the issue that there are project delays that are mostly impacted by this construction mafias or disagreements with the business forums within municipalities. And thirdly, they've been trying to do a social compact where they make sure that all the projects are inclusive of most of the businesses within the municipalities, but they are often left with a lot of demands that municipalities, the metros cannot meet with that. So that those are the first challenges that they have. The issue of the PT, I don't have all the details, and I think what we can do, Chair, is to do a formal submission in terms of those issues, because how I've discussed it with it, I don't think I'll do justice in terms of the withdrawal aspect, the key issues that were raised, but I know non-performance and non-spending is what National Treasury has raised. But from a municipal perspective, we currently don't have that, and we can formally submit a written submission on that issue. And then Lance can come with the other one that he was not able to speak on.
No, let me do this for the purposes of this particular engagement. Lance, and maybe from SALGA, if you could send me a written submission on the two respective questions that are outstanding, and then we can go from there. We've gone 15 minutes above the time I wanted us to be, because I want to allow FFC enough time before members also have to begin to leave. So can I ask that you send me a written response on those two issues? Certainly, if you can, keeping in mind that today being Tuesday, I'm almost certain that we could get these responses by Friday. That would be helpful. That is at the end of this week. Is that fine with you, Lance?
Yeah, that's in order. We will duly respond. I
will appreciate that. I will appreciate that. Honourable members, in the interest of time and the efficacy, it is now 10:45. I want to recognize the FFC who have been patiently with us here. And Doctor, I want to thank you, Chairperson, for your indulgence in this regard. I have been through the presentation of the FFC. I'm going to allow, it is now 1:45. If I can allow you to present until 1:15, that's half an hour. effectively, I think the key conversations are on the national appropriations, the provincial and the local appropriations, given the nature of it. And so we can split it in that way. This is not the first time we've had an engagement on this subject. I know we had an extended one with the FFC previously, and so this would be a continuation from that particular discussion point. But Chairperson, Dr. Mbava, let me recognize you and thank you for your indulgence and welcome to the meeting. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Chair. Good morning to all the members and good morning to yourself. Thank you so much for the opportunity for the Financial and Fiscal Commission to come before yourselves to present on the 3 bills that are under discussion. Chair, we won't take much time. I think this committee is fully our for Monday and to give our comment on the 3 bills. If I can ask as to what are we presenting today, we're going to comment, Chair, on the Division of Revenue bill. We're going to comment on the adjustment appropriation bill for 2025, which speaks to the adjustments which are made to the main budget, and we're also going to speak to the special appropriation bill as well, and then we're also going to give our comments on the Division of Revenue amendment bill at both the provincial and the local government. As we proceeding, Chair, let me also recognize one of our commissioners who is on the platform and who is a SALGA nominee on the commission, Professor Trevor Fowler. She's also on the platform. She will come in at the appropriate time. At this point, let me allow the researchers to just go to the meat of our presentation, which starts from the next slide. I'll ask my head of research, I think he's on the platform, Chen Tseng, to just give an overview. Over to you, Chen.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, Honourable Chairs and members. Following that very fruitful engagement, I think what I'd like to just impress upon the Honourable Chair members is that right now, right, from with the medium-term budget policy statements, what is key to recognize is that with all these adjustment bills and amendment bills, these are in-year adjustments of the 25-26 financial year. That goes without saying, but I think what is more interesting in the budget process is that it gives very important telltale signs in terms of some of the changes and the intentions and signals of changes in the financial management and frameworks and conditions and flows for these grants and conditional or unconditional, or some of the very important policy signals and certainties or uncertainties thereof with regards to the not just the divisional revenue bill, because you recall that we've learned many a times by now that one cannot speak of just say local government equitable share. We can't just speak of national appropriations in that sense, right? So it's in that this manner, this context, that I like to impress 2 points to your attention, Honourable Chair members. One is that if one reads this whole of the budgets as it should be read in such a way, is that there are still parts where it does not make sense. From the macro perspective, which we did go through a few days ago, and as well as the micro perspective. On the facts is, for example, the special appropriations, this money that is now going through for health, and specifically say it to be for PEPFAR, that it does not make sense. It does not fit with the overall budget or the fiscal framework of things. Why I say that is because that, as my researcher will take you through in terms of the details, is that some of the developments have changed, and yet our budget process, or our budget that is the in-year adjustments, not just that, but also for the medium-term budgets, have not taken those changes into account. Some of the honourable honourable members might have noticed because of this special appropriation bill that came just before the medium-term budget policy statement. And unfortunately, the FFC, through our analysis, we still can't find that update or the adjustments that is in line with the later developments of with regards to that money of the PEPFAR. That's one. The other thing is that in the in-year adjustments, we still find of the divisional revenue, might I rather be more specific about the bill, is that there are in-year adjustments. Many of the in-year adjustments have happened to be still correcting some of the errors that was made in this process that we went through from budget 2.0 to the 3.0, and then that there are still errors that they made corrections to by Treasury in this adjustments. So with those 2 points, I just want to sort of contextualize that and make an impression upon you, on what chairman is, that those are the areas to look at. And again, coming back to the macro level, elevate oneself to the macro level, is that this budget, right, medium term for the next financial year, the 2026 budget, what does it all mean then, right? How confident can we be with notwithstanding these adjustment errors and or adjustment that is not responding to the ongoing developments in not just on the fiscal framework side, which we went through, but also on the macro side of the specific bills as they are presented and tabled for your consideration. So with that, those few words, let me then quickly give to Fabrice and the rest of the team to take it over for the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Jen, and good morning to Honourable Chairperson and honourable members. I'd just like to apologize for not switching on my camera at the moment. The connectivity at our office is very unstable, so my colleagues and I will be sharing this device. So if you hear the different people talking, their names are not all Fabrice, but let me get into the meat of the presentation. So on the slide, you'll see here just gives the key snapshot of the headline figures of the 2025 Adjustment Appropriation Bill. What we'd like to point out here is that the bill makes adjustments totaling 10.1 billion for 25-26, and key of which within this 10.1 billion, there has been 5.2 billion in total relating to rollovers, as well as 6.1 billion allocated for unforeseeable and unavoidable expenditure. So those two key amounts I'll go through in detail as we go through the presentation. But what we'd like to point out here is that when looking at the rollover amount, it does point to some systematic implementation challenges that are occurring across government departments that are leading to procurement delays and poor project management. This next slide provides a snapshot of the votes that have seen significant adjustments. So on the upward adjustment side, the two votes here were the communication and digital technology votes, which saw an upward adjustment of close to 40%. And this was mainly due to 1 billion in rollovers for the South African Connect Broadband project. So again, here points to some of those execution challenges that I just mentioned that are halting the timely executions of projects. And on the Home Affairs vote, it saw an upward revision of 27%. And this was largely due to 2.5 billion in self-financing from service fees, which points to some strong internal funding capacity that of course, requires oversight to make sure that the services that they are charging for remain accessible to the wider population. On the downward side, the two votes that saw significant adjustments were the water and sanitation vote, and that saw downward adjustments of 12.4%, and that was due to 3.3 billion that was unspent due to delays in the Nkomazi water project, which risks undermining bulk water availability in KwaZulu-Natal. And the transport vote saw a reduction or downward adjustment of 4.1%, and that was a reflection of SANRAL's large cash balances, as well as 3.2 million that was rolled over for the finalization and completion of the National Rail Devolution Strategy, which in previous years the Commission has warned against it being delayed due to the need for policy certainty with regards to where the country is going in terms of the devolution of passenger rail transport. Again, given the need to implement the structural reforms needed to stimulate economic activity. And the Commission, on this point, the Commission has also recommended that it be phased in, be implemented in a phased manner when it comes to its implementation. This slide looks at the learning and culture, health and social development votes. So the key takeaways here, the basic education vote saw an upward adjustment of 7.8%, and that reflects funds going to early childhood development grant expansion, as well as just over 450 million that's allocated to the repair of flood damaged schools, which the Commission here wants to highlight underscores the need for urgent climate budget resilience. On the social development vote, it saw a minor upward adjustment of 0.4%, and that goes towards a payment for outstanding COVID-19 SOD grants. And here we'd like to just highlight that the Minister did announce the extension of the COVID-19 SOD grant for a further year until the end of March 2027, despite there being no provisions that were outlined in the 2025 budget. And here the Commission wants to press the need for the finalization of this sustainable income support system. And the Commission also wants, on social development, wants to welcome the initiative to eliminate fraud within the grant administration, and this aligns with the Commission's 2020-24 MTPPS recommendations. Lastly, on the health vote, it saw an upward adjustment of close to 2%, and this includes 40 billion that goes towards the repair of infrastructure that was damaged by natural disasters in Eastern Cape. On the economic development votes, firstly, the combined agriculture, land reform, and rural development votes saw an upward adjustments of 5.6%, and this goes towards repairing damaged infrastructure, as well as settling a restitution or land dispute in the KwaZulu-Natal province. On employment and labor, the votes saw an upward adjustment of 3.2%, and that includes the amount allocated for the national dialogue, which calls to question, again, just looking at how we balance such an expenditure with the pressing social needs in society. And lastly, mineral resources energy, it was a minor upward adjustment of 0.1% driven by rollovers for the G20 summit. On the peace and security votes, I'd just like to highlight, I guess, two things from this specific slide. So the Office of Chief Justice saw an upward adjustment of 6.9%, and that's to help strengthen its capacities, which is vital for administrative efficiency of the highest courts in the country and the delivery of justice. On the defense vote, it saw an upward adjustment of 3.3%, and that includes funding for early retirement program, as well as reinvesting revenue from peacekeeping missions into border security, internal stability operations, and equipment upgrades, which the Commission would like to welcome. Then looking at the charges against the National Revenue Fund, the two key takeaways here are when it comes to debt servicing costs, so that was adjusted downwards by 4.8 billion to reflect a more favorable macroeconomic environment or macroeconomic factors in the form of lower interest rates, lower inflation, and a stronger currency. And when it comes to the provincial equitable share, it received an upward adjustment of 3.2%, and that includes 14.3 billion that goes towards the compensation of employees and goods and services in the provincial education and health departments, as well as to compensate for the provinces of Free State, Gauteng, and Northwest for formula changes based on updated population data. Finally, looking at the 2025 Special Appropriation Bill, so the headline figure here was that 754.5 million was allocated to the health vote for to addressing funding shortfalls due to the withdrawal of international donor funding to the health sector, namely the President's Emergency Plans for AIDS Relief, or PEPFAR. Within that 754.5 million, 590.4 million goes towards provinces to replace the support that was lost by PEPFAR. And the Commission would like to point out here that this shift could burden our already overstretched provincial health system. And currently there was no clarity in terms of how much of this money would actually go to NGOs who are key when it comes to the delivery of these types of health services. So as our head of research did mention, this bill comes at a time when the US government has already announced that it would exempt PEPFAR from the spending cuts, as well as the announcement by, again, the US government of the PEPFAR bridge funding plan for South Africa that's worth 115 million US dollars over a 6-month period, so the 1st October 2025 to the 31st of March 2026. So in light of these developments, it is worth considering whether this special appropriation bill as a stand is required. When it comes to the FFC's recommendations on the adjustment appropriation bill and special appropriation bill, the first recommendation that the Commission it recommends that government infrastructure prioritization during this MTEF period be complemented by robust project management across the entire project lifecycle, and that includes also making sure funds are ring-fenced for ongoing repairs and maintenance. Secondly, the Commission recommends that Minister of Finance look to build fiscal buffers into the budget to mitigate against climate-related shocks. Thirdly, as I mentioned before, the Commission does support the initiative to address fraud within the social grant system and would like to and recommends that the Minister of Social Development put in place key measures, including implementing regular third-party data audits, strengthening the department's internal data and compliance functions, as well as mandating staff training on fraud detection and ethical conduct. Fourthly, given the current uncertainty around global health funding, particularly in relation to the US stance when it comes to its America First policy, the recommendation that the Commission would like to make here is that the Minister of Health, in collaboration with the Minister of Finance, develop and implement a multi-year domestically funded financing model for the country's HIV/AIDS response. And finally, the Commission recommends that the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and Training, in collaboration with stakeholders, including labor, employees, and professional bodies, conduct a comprehensive review of the sector education and training authorities in order to identify duplications and eliminate any functional overlaps to ensure a more streamlined and integrated higher education support system when it comes to education. Thank you, Chair. Through you, I would like to hand over to my next colleague to go through the next section.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, and good morning to all honorable members. I will take you through this section of our submission as it relates to the division of revenue to provinces. And what is key here in this slide, as we can see, is that we are comparing total allocation for provinces between the main budget, 2025 main budget, and adjusted budget. So total allocation to provinces has increased from 767.8 billion to 787 billion. So all in all, there has been an increase of 3% if we compare adjusted and the main budget. And the key to note here is that out of this 787 billion, 747.6 billion is through the PS, provincial equitable share, and 139.4 billion, which constitutes 17% of the total, and then goes to constitutional grants. And then in this slide, what we are showing here, we are showing adjustments that have been made to provinces. As we can see here, there's been a change that has been made. And here in this slide, I relate to what Fabrice has already presented, that there's been adjustment that has been made to provinces. And then this is primarily in the main, there's been adjustment for compensation of employees, but in the main, there's been adjustment that have been made as a result of the data that was not available at the time of the allocation in 2025 earlier on, which has been addressed now, particularly for provinces. For example, your Gauteng and the Northwest, they received a huge amount. That there's been significant adjustment that have been made there. And the last bullet point here it just shows the amount that is allocated outside the provincial equitable share, of which this again undermines the principles of transparency within the IGFR system. Okay, this slide now was zooming into provincial equitable share on what has happened, on constitutional grants, what has happened, what has changed. We indicated that there's been a revision with respect to the overall allocation for provinces, but here for constitutional grants now we see that there's been an upward revision from 134.6 billion to 139.4 billion in the revised budget. And then additional to this, we can see in the graph that there's been insignificant positive or upwards adjustments, and there's been a significant negative adjustments that have been made. In the main, the small insignificant adjustments that have been made is what Fabrice has spoken about. These are as a result of some adjustments that have been made to constitutional grants, such as that goes to education and provincial roads, which is aimed at addressing or constructing the infrastructure that was damaged by floods and the winds, particularly in two provinces, that is the KZN and Eastern Cape. These grants were channeled through, these adjustments were channeled through these three grants, that is educational infrastructure grant, health facility revitalization grant, and provincial road maintenance grant. And then significantly adjusted downwards here, we can see in the graph by 21% is the school infrastructure backlog grant. And then funding from this grant has been shifted to fund textbooks, workbooks, projects, as well as infrastructure assessments. And then key, what we also see here is that, as we've mentioned, that the 3% that we see in the regional financial grant is for those infrastructure that has been damaged by floods and winds. Of importance here, honorable members, is that 21% we should note here, or reduction from the school infrastructure backlog grant will have negative impact to the delivery and obtaining of objectives of this grant. And then lastly, the other developments on this slide that we are noting is a merging of some of the grants that will be consolidated, and this includes the CASP Comprehensive Agricultural Support Program and Ilima Litsima, as well as the SIBG grant, that is School Infrastructure Backlog grant, with Education Infrastructure Backlog grant from the 2027 MTF. And here, Chairperson and members, we selected some few grants that have been significantly revised. And as you can see here, we have School Background Infrastructure Grant, and then we have School Infrastructure Grant. These grants, as we mentioned, with respect to the Education Infrastructure Grant, there's been 454 million that has been added to, again, for the reconstruction of the damaged infrastructure. And then 254 million has been allocated to the Eastern Cape, with 100 million allocated to the KZN. Of a concern now is that 21% that we see here on the School Infrastructure Backlog grant. And then that amount, as we've said, is been shifted to fund the workbook project. And then what we are noting here, and it's key also to note, honorable members, that this grant that has been reduced significantly by 21% will be merged with the Education Infrastructure Grant. And then the Commission is concerned here that there's a possibility that its objectives could be overlooked after these grants have been merged. Then hence we are calling for the National Department of Basic Education to ensure, to closely monitor that the objectives. We're noting that
we are straight now. Please for a moment.
Honorable member, they can. I don't know whose device is on. If you could please just mute it, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. The next slide, honorable members, we are just presenting some of our concluding remarks and recommendations as they relate to the Union of Revenue Bill for provinces. Firstly, we note that there will be a merger of Comprehensive Agricultural Support Grant with Ilima Litsima as from the 2027 MTF. We support this as a commission, but the commission also would like to reiterate its earlier recommendation that the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development should consolidate all these three grants. Over and above these two, there's also a land care grant. We are of the view that it should also form part of this consolidation, and all other funding streams for smallholder support to be consolidated. Secondly, FFC welcomes the phased integration of the School Infrastructure Backlog grant into Education Infrastructure Backlog grant. But here, FFC recommends that the National Department of Basic Education should closely monitor the implementation to ensure that key objectives of the grant, particularly the School Infrastructure Backlog grant, is not overlooked, because this could compromise elimination of inappropriate school structures, access to water and electricity to schools. And then lastly, the Commission supports the allocation of disaster relief fund to provinces have received the infrastructure that has been damaged by climate change issues. But here the Commission reiterates its 2024 recommendation that the provinces should adopt proactive risk management measures through strategic infrastructure planning and adaptive budget to mitigate future impacts and strengthen resilience to natural disasters. With your permission, Chairperson, I would like to hand over to my colleague Nosisa to take us through the next section. Thank you.
Thank you, Tabelo. Good morning, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members. My name is Nosisa Kwama, and I'll be taking you through the DOR Amendment Bill for local government. This slide shows the total allocations to local governments here. In the 2025 adjusted budget, total transfers to local government amounted to 180.6 billion, driven by 7.1 increase in conditional grants, while other components remain unchanged. Next slide, please. This slide demonstrates the distribution of the local government equitable share across provinces. The two provinces receiving the largest allocation are Gauteng receiving 21.1 and KZN getting 19.4 of the local government equitable share. Honorable members, the Commission echo the concerns raised by SALGA regarding the continued use of the outdated demographic and socioeconomic data in the LGES. As a result, the LGES allocation may be misaligned with the realities on the ground, undermining municipalities' ability to plan, budget, and deliver basic services effectively. Next slide, please. This slide focuses on the three conditional grants that received the most significant adjustment in the adjusted budget. If we look at the Municipal Discovery Recovery Grant, the total allocations for this grant increased by 496 million. It rises from 709 million in the main budget to 1.2 billion in the adjusted budget. This is for reconstruction and rehabilitation of municipal infrastructure damaged by extreme weather in Eastern Cape. A Category C municipalities allocation increased by 75 million, and the Category B are getting 420 million in the adjusted budget. Next slide, please. So, previous slide. Then the public transport network grant, the total allocations are 7.5 billion for the 2025-26 MTEF, a rolled over of 303 million to allow eThekwini Metropolitan Municipality to continue critical work for the operationalization of Corridor 3 of its integrated public transport network. Honorable members, the additional 303 million present both an opportunity and a risk, an opportunity to complete a delayed operationalization of Corridor 3 and a risk of inefficiency if oversight is not strengthened. Then if we look at the Urban Development Finance Grant, the purpose for the 2.1 adjustment is to accelerate metro trading reforms, improve service delivery, and unlock infrastructure financing for metros. Metros are the engine of the South African economy, generating the majority of GDP and employment. Their ability to reliably deliver water, electricity, sanitation, and other trading services is fundamental to economic productivity and to improve household well-being. Next slide, please. Then this slide highlights the 15 municipalities in the Eastern Cape affected by extreme weather events that are receiving additional support through the adjusted budget. 13 of these municipalities are Category B municipalities and 2 are Category C, all allocated within the OR Tambo District and Amatole District municipalities. So as the Commission, we are saying a strong oversight is crucial as local government conditional grant has a long history of underperformance, largely due to poor project planning, procurement delays, and poor financial management. This is particularly important because the MDRG is a highly targeted grant meant for urgent reconstruction, and any deviation from its intended purpose would delay service restoration and compromise recovery efforts for affected municipalities. Then on this slide, we are showing an additional 2.1 billion that has been allocated to the Metro Trading Services component of the Urban Development Finance Grant to expedite reforms. 7 metros are receiving this adjusted allocation, with Nelson Mandela Bay being the only metro not allocated a share of the adjusted budget. Next slide, please. Then moving to the Commission's recommendation. Firstly, the Commission reiterates its recommendation from the 27th Division of Revenue Submission that the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional review of the local government equitable share formula. The revised formula must reflect rapid urban population growth, rising service delivery costs, and the distinctive pressures facing urban municipalities. Secondly, the Commission notes the introduction of the performance-based grant for sustainable urban development in July 2025, aimed at supporting metros to improve water, sanitation, electricity, and waste services. To strengthen financial sustainability, operational efficiency, and accountability, this reform should be accompanied by clear performance target, transparent reporting, and targeted capacity support. In this context, the Commission recommends that the National Treasury and the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs closely monitor implementation, assess the impact of the performance-based component on infrastructure management, and extend successful lessons to large secondary cities where appropriate. And lastly, the Commission supports the municipal infrastructure grant reforms, introducing the split delivery model, whereby capable municipalities retain direct funding, while those with ongoing capacity constraints receive indirect support through the Municipal Infrastructure Support Agent and the Development Bank of Southern Africa. Effective implementation requires a robust monitoring, clear capability milestones, and a defined exit strategy to rebuild the capacity for direct delivery while accelerating service provision. The Commission therefore recommends that the National Treasury, in collaboration with the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs and MISA, establish clear criteria for municipalities requiring indirect delivery and implement performance-based mechanism to track progress towards restoring direct implementation capacity. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. And with your permission, I would like to hand over to my Chairperson for the concluding remarks.
Thank you so much to the research team. I think, Chair, we've covered all issues that we wanted to highlight to the committee. So we'll now hand over back to you to engage further. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I wanted we'll have to clarify certain terms as we go, but I'm going to allow the committee to take through a number of questions. We will go through it in the same manner as we did with SALGA, each party having 10 minutes. This way we are efficient time-wise, and then you can respond accordingly, Chairperson, with the team there. And I want to appeal to the political parties. You really want substantive engagement. Let's try our best to keep questions brief so that we get responses directly. Otherwise, if we are trying to solve for a very important question, which is the medium-term budget policy statement, and so there are many issues that sit here that we could cover. For example, the previous presenter spoke about capacity of municipalities. You often find that municipalities that are in the deepest need for infrastructure are most incapable. So if you leave, and I'm not saying that's what you are saying, but I want to understand it better. If you leave infrastructure built to municipalities that have got capacities as direct grants, they will always be favorable. And we've seen this through the BFI windows, that it's often just a case of those who've got capacity apply, they get the thing done and they build. And often those are in metros or municipalities that are already doing relatively well. Our arrangement as a country is that we try and help those who are not, and therefore often capacity is weak, infrastructure build is worst. And more worryingly, is to your point, if they are reliant on other indirect grants, you end up literally not being able to build infrastructure in those communities. But let me, without taking up too much time, I recognize Honorable Mkhonto, Honorable Waitlin, and then I would assume the parties will go from there. Honorable Mkhonto, let me allow you to go first. Your 10 minutes will start now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings to Dr. Mvaba and her team. Chair, we appreciate the presentation. Chair, I want to first know about the COVID-19 SRD grant. I know there is a department responsible for that, but I'm just asking myself, Chair, that as it is being continued until March 2027, what is happening on the beneficiary list? Is it stable? Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? And the economic status of the beneficiaries, is it checked? Because, Chair, we last had COVID in 2020. Now is 2025. We are told it is going to continue until 2027, March 2027. So, Chair, my biggest worry is, are we giving money to the eligible people, or their economic status have changed? And then the national dialogue. I know, Chair, the presenters, Dr. Mvaba and his team, are not responsible for it, but I'm just asking, Chair, is there any value for money with this national dialogue? Is it achieving the desired goals? And then the third one, Chair, will be the flood damaged infrastructure, specifically in KZN and the Eastern Cape. Let us accept that, Chair. Specifically in KZN, it has been a long overdue. But then, Chair, the infrastructure that is being damaged by floods specifically, is the age of the infrastructure checked? Because some is because of the quality of the infrastructure. It is not in order, Chair, that you have a bridge that is built and then after 3 months, very small floods occur and then the bridge is flooded. It means there is something about the quality of our infrastructure. So what I mean, Chair, is that provinces and municipalities must be encouraged in the case of equality when it comes to the infrastructure grant. And the last one, Chair, is on the grants that are given. We are experiencing a lot of specifically potholes, Chair. We are told in this committee that money is being given to provinces and municipalities for infrastructure. But, Chair, let us be honest, we don't see where the money is used when we go to these provinces and municipalities. Is there any follow the money strategy that is there, not only on paper, but the physical follow the money? Because, Chair, this country is riddled with potholes. So the other infrastructure, yes, there are challenges, but when it comes to road infrastructure, Chair, specifically the regional roads, the only good roads here in South Africa are the national roads. When you go to the regional roads and the municipal roads, it's a disaster. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mkhonto. FFC Chairperson, you can guide how the team responds, or maybe Jen can take some of the response. You will have 5 minutes to respond to that input by Honorable Mkhonto.
Oh, Chair, do you want us to respond to each question one by one, or are we going to take all of them?
Yes, what I'm not going to do is what we've done is, as we did it previously, we're trying to make sure that honorable members get direct responses to their questions. This way, we don't take a whole collective of questions and then only a whole collective of responses. So if I can ask that you respond to the questions that were put to Honorable by Honorable Mkhonto, and the team would have gathered them so that we don't have a pile up of questions. Also, it avoids the notion of duplications, both in responses and in questions.
No, thank you so much, Chair. Maybe just on the question about the SRD grant from Honorable Mkhonto, I think the question is bigger than what she's asking, whether we still have the right recipients. Must we still continue to fund people for COVID-20 SRD grant, which the COVID was in 2020, rightfully so. I think the bigger question here, Honorable Chair and members, is that how do we move forward when it comes to the SRD grant? And I think that is a question that National Treasury is grappling with. What form and shape must the SRD grant into the future take? Must we still have an SRD grant? Must we have a basic income grant? And how is it going to be funded? And who qualifies for it? So these are the bigger questions that they are still grappling with. Hence, we see these continuous extensions on an annual basis because there is lack of decision making. So maybe we should be saying, when do we actually make a decisive decision as to what do we do with the SRD grant, because we keep making these additional allocations every year because we are unable at this moment to come up with a clear and coherent answer and decision as to how do we continue to fund this SRD grant, which, as Honorable Mkhonto is alluding to, we can actually now get more people, into this wagon coming in and actually being beneficiary, and before you know it, it has mushroomed from what it was in the early stage. So I think the question here is that members should be asking is when do we get to make a decisive decision with regards to the SRD grant? On my side, I'm going to pause here and I'm going to ask the research team to answer if there are any questions on their side. Any responses? Chen, with your team, are there any responses, or do you want to wait for the other questions?
Thank you, Chair. I think just in the interest of time, first of all, I just want to say I appreciate, Honorable Chair, your approach. I've seen this being done at the congressional hearings, and it will give you a much more targeted approach to the answers of the questions. So if you allow it, so just in further to the COVID SRD grants, as my chairperson said, it's quite correct, is that it lacks, and also as Honorable Mkhonto said, it is an unfortunate loss of policy clarity and also certainty, and it has come now to a point, as it is 2025, and that its certainty, the policy certainty of it, is now somewhat diminished because of even at its first instance of the policy impact was of an uncertain nature. I hope you would agree with me on that one, is that remember that when this SRD thing came up online, there were questions already about is 350 enough, how much it should be enough, and how long will it stay, and now it's at the point where we're just doing this year by year by year. And not just that, also the eligibility problem of it. Our Honorable Chairman, as FFC, as we have done research into it, we found that actually, I'm trying to answer the beneficiary list issue, is that one finds actually that the eligibility has somewhat amidst this whole policy uncertainty, it has now created gaps in allowing asylum seekers, in allowing permanent residents, and sometimes even just refugee status individuals to be eligible. Meanwhile, our citizens, due to its income status, or say that there's even a little bit of income, then they kick them out. So it's under the circumstances that we need to ask ourselves a question. We're not trying to answer whether, foreigners or illegal migrants should allow or not be allowed, because that's a DIRCO problem. But we do have to think from a fiscal perspective and an economic point, as Honorable Nkonto is quite rightfully so and concerned, is about what does it mean for our South Africa's fiscal resources being used in such a manner, and that is it still fit for purpose? And I think, as in the questions that you asked, Honorable Chair and Members, Honorable Mkondo, is that the fit for purpose question is clearly losing its traction and fits. And in terms of impacts, unfortunately, by now, the fact that we still don't know, it means that from an uncertainty measure point of view, it shouldn't continue. Let me just put that there from a technical perspective, right? Not from any other influenced perspective. On the national dialogue, Honorable Chairman, this matter is it's very tricky, and we are not able to point out because again, it's something similar to the COVID-19 impact SRD grant. Is that what is the policy impact? We don't know. One can't even measure it. There is a lot of normative or expectations being built on it, but so far we haven't seen any actual outcomes and impact of it. So rightfully so, we national dialogue, as we also in our recommendations and in our analysis, we say that it's questionable that this dialogue should continue in the current manner. We're not saying that there should not be a dialogue, because communication is the key to attain that policy certainty. But unfortunately, it's at the moment in its current form. It's not delivering or giving us traction, and it's not giving us confidence. The flood damage infrastructure, it's all right, and you're all right about the quality of the bill. However, there's one thing that we'd like to note here as FFC from a financial point of view. You will notice that a lot of the grant funding for flood damage and disaster recovery and all those grants, it has now been channeled in a way that it's off the books. It's always this, quickly, let's just put some money into a specific province. Whether or how the qualifications criteria for that province to receive such grants, and also whether it should be or how much of it is being channeled through PES or other conditional grants or special appropriations or any other kinds that we don't see in terms of the implementation of it. That, I think, it's a bigger concern for us as FFC, because when money starts to lose its definition in terms of the categories and the schedules of the transfers, right? Remember, we have Schedule 4, 5, 6, and that says it's a specific purpose, or is it an indirect purpose, or is it a supplementary purpose? Then this money's impact starts to lose its fit and lose its effectiveness. And lastly, money is given for infrastructure. I think one liner answer to that, Honorable Chair Members, is that this road, for it to be effectively resolved and fixed, we need to know very clearly what out of the municipal roads, what out of the provincial roads, and what out of the national roads. And currently, it's all mixed up. It's SENRAL takes some roads, and then provinces, they sometimes go and ask SENRAL to fix their roads, and they pay them money. And then municipal roads is kind of like sort of where the question of capacity comes online. But on that point, let me use this opportunity to quickly extend to Honorable Chair.
If I can ask you, because just if you can wrap up on this one particular, the question spoke to a number of issues, even about potholes at municipal level, which I suppose some of it needs to be directed to SALGA. But if you could just be brief on this question, because we've still got a number of ones that are still coming. Thank you.
Yes, Chair. The last point I just wanted to point out, as per your question, your point, actually, is that there shouldn't be another separate process to see whether there is a capacity or non-capacity. The fact that the roads are not built or if the potholes are not fixed, it is a straight up a fail for service delivery. I would agree. I think that's my last point. There shouldn't be a special skill audits for such a thing. Thank you, Chair.
I think I recognize Honorable Fowler, Trevor Fowler, who is here, who's one of the commissioners. He was the city manager when I was the city manager of the great city of Johannesburg when I was councillor there. So maybe at some point the question he will note and recognize at some point, and then maybe he can type in the chat to say some of the input so he can respond. Let me recognize Honorable Wakelin, and I am assuming Honorable Bateman will be with you. Your 10 minutes starts now. Thank you.
Chair, I will be the only one that will be speaking today. Honorable Bateman is just listening in.
Yes,
Chair,
yeah,
so we're going to be quick. I've actually got just 6 questions, if I may quickly just land in. Given our previous presentation, there's a number of comments that flows from there, and I would like, obviously, the FFC's position on these matters. The FFC's always, as per usual, give us very concise presentation, and thank you very much for that. On a matter more practical, for me, it's about the implementation of the budget. My concern, and I keep on raising this, and I know the FFC has been raising this matter of weak project management over a very long period of time. I'd just like to have the FFC's position on would we still continue using external providers and capacitate the local government in the meantime? Do they think that the capacitation training of SALGA had an impact so far? As far as I'm concerned, it has not, and they've just been spending a lot of money on training, and we see the results of that. And then also a part question to the whole project management, the cost implication from percentage increase by utilizing external providers. What impact does it have on our current budget and going into the future? So just an overview on project management in particular, and the view on what has been presented by SALGA this morning. The second matter is around an argument that's made, and based on your question, Chair, you quickly touched on it, is that performance-based grants discriminate against those that can't perform due to capacity constraints. Would tranche management be utilized more effectively, will assist to develop and capacitate those so that they will be able to have more grants allocated and based on their performance? And is there any other methodology they would suggest? Because the argument is made, well, we can't do it because we don't have the capacity and we're going to continue not having money anyway. So I would like us to refute that in a practical way. The third question is, there was a lot been said around the 2011 census, and I made a point on the matters and how it changes over the period of time. A lot of people will be moving to metros. Do you suggest that that this budget allocation that will flock into metro will have a direct impact on the smaller municipalities? And how do you see this thing playing out, especially if we keep on demanding that the census must change? Because my view is that the change would have an impact, and a very adverse impact on smaller municipalities for now. Then the SALGA has brought in a position that says that there's an increase of cost to consumers when we implement the metro trading services. And I would like to have the FFC's position on that, because if that is so, then there's no point for us doing this. But I'm of the view it is just, again, passing the buck situation. If I can get a view from the FFC around metro trading services, and that there would be a cost increase to consumers. Then also, as far as Eskom's taking over municipalities' mandates, and there was a reference made to Section 78, and I had a quick look at Section 78, and how sustainable is this going to be in the future? And again, the way municipalities passing the buck to, or not trying to, but not getting to the point to collect the revenue that is outstanding. How do we deal with this Eskom taking over the municipal mandates? Is that a way to go forward? Just their view on that. Then, what impact do we see on the non-payment of pension funds and the impact on the LTS, particularly the LTS up to 2029? I get a sense, Chair, and that's just my own view, is that at the point there will be a request from municipalities for a bailout from government again to cover the cost. We're looking already at 316 billion rand, as it was indicated, and I'm very concerned about that. And How are we going to deal with that? Well, it affects hundreds and thousands of people. And I just want FFC's view on that and what they suggest we do. And then the last one, Chair, is around the task process. We know that previously the task implementation was based on a lot of the GTEC investigations that were done on efficiency from the 2014, 2015, 2016 area. Do the FFC still think it's still relevant? I've got a view. My view says that some portions of that is still relevant, as not much has changed since then. And should we continue with utilizing the task process based on those assessments that were done almost 8, 9, 10 years ago? Thank you, Chair. I'll be listening.
Thank you, Honourable Wakelin. I apologize. I was on mute there. If I could allow the FFC to respond in that regard, and if there are follow-ups, certainly will take time. You are recognized, either the chair or the research team.
Thank you so much. If I can just ask Commissioner Fowler, maybe to answer some of the questions, his thoughts and his insights on some of the local government questions, like on weak project management and service providers and all that. Commissioner Fowler, your thoughts, sentiments?
Thank you, Honourable Chair, for the opportunity, and noting that the chair of the committee, I note that has progressed a lot since being a councillor in Joburg. Just to address perhaps the questions on project management and training, I think there's one issue that perhaps is overlooked often when we deal with these matters, that the Constitution is fairly clear about support for local government. And currently the support process is looked at as a support for a particular issue. But the Constitution, Section 154, talks about support from provincial and national government. And it's in all the areas. And one of the things that's happening now is there is an attempt to provide some support from national government to, let's say, to the city of Johannesburg, to try to address some of the really problematic areas, which are more than just it's systemic issues that need to be addressed. So in relation to project management, indeed, there's a capacity problem in municipalities around infrastructure. And it is an area that needs some support, in the sense that even if you provide the money, it's not going to change it unless you have the capacity there to execute it. And that's where some guidance can really come from other departments, national and provincial, to address that. And let me say that the question around the metro trading services, in the metros, you're dealing with large, complex organizations. And the approach by National Treasury and government on the metro trading services is that it may be a slight increase in the cost of the administration, but the cost of the management of the infrastructure is much more focused. So, for instance, if you've got a service that provides water, you've got focused areas there that addresses not just water reticulation, but addresses the reservoirs that need to be replaced, the reservoirs that need maintenance. And on roads, it's not just about whether there are potholes. So potholes are a very important issue that is that people identify immediately and has an impact on the integrity of the surface or the foundation of the road itself when there are potholes. So it's an important area that you need capacity. And the trading services will certainly, from water, electricity, and waste management, will really get the expertise on the more difficult issues which people don't see. such as addressing the waste dumps that are there, ensuring they're properly designed so you don't have pollution for our children in the future because they were not properly the waste dumps were not properly utilized. So there is some value to the trading services reform that is there, which I think may increase costs slightly, but in the long term will reduce costs because of the greater expertise and the more professionalism at the level of delivery. In terms of ESCOM taking over some of the municipal services, in the one case in particular, both ESCOM and Rand Water, where they are taking over the services of the municipality, which has struggled for many, many years. So it is not a long-term takeover, because indeed, as the honourable member has indicated, I think Honourable Wakeland has indicated, that the services are to be provided, those kind of infrastructure services, reticulation in particular, in the Constitution is provided by municipalities. And they would so ESCOM would be doing this really on the basis that they're given authority by the municipality. And also in case of Rand Water, in the case of providing water services, water delivery services or reticulation services, that would be done by a special purpose vehicle that will provide that service. So Rand Water is helping to set it up, but once set up, it'll be the special purpose vehicle that will have to be accountable to the municipality in the end. And I think so the accountability issues are being addressed. I think I've covered most of the infrastructure issues that have been mentioned. I must say that I do agree with SALGA on some of the issues that they've raised. In particular, the question of the maintenance of infrastructure. So the maintenance is at 8%, that National Treasury, some countries use 10%, that of the infrastructure that's put in. So the more infrastructure you put in, the more burden you have on the municipality. And in some countries, so one of our neighboring countries, Botswana, they have legislation that says infrastructure can't be put in unless you have the 10% set aside for the future to ensure that you are able to maintain it, etc. And we haven't really been addressing it. So perhaps as legislators, that would be one issue that you could ask some questions about and look at as to how the long-term cost of infrastructure that's provided through national grants is taken care of. So thank you, Chair. I think I've answered several of the infrastructure questions. And if there are any follow-ups, I'd be prepared to answer those. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Others would argue that in my role, it's a sense of demotion, but we can debate that on another side. No, you can proceed. I think if we can just be about a few more minutes, because we've still got Honorable Gamedo on the platform, and we've still got to see a few sets of questions, so we need to just keep to time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. Perhaps the other members want to answer some of the other questions, the task process.
Yeah, Dr. Mbava.
Thank you.
Yes. Thanks so much. I think one of the questions which was asked, which I think the research team can address, is the issue of the 2011 census and also the use of GTEC investigations to inform tests. Maybe Nosisa, we can assist on the local government, and also the performance-based grants vis-a-vis those who don't receive them. Any of the researchers, please? Chen, can you come in here, please?
Yes, Chair. Thank you, Chair. On the times, not at all relevant, unfortunately, Honourable Member. The dates matters, especially, I hope you'd agree, we're dealing with local context and content. And South Africa are not the dynamics that the local government developments and changes have been, in the very short span of time, but also at its initial stages, I'm sure you would agree that there were already huge, diverse, highly diverse context of local governments that we did not account for, even with the census and also with all the other data that we can serve. In terms of the 2011 census on the migration patterns, Honourable Chairman, we got a problem is that 2022 census actually, because it was surveyed at a time of the COVID, so there were even signs in the 2022 census that because people actually returned or they went back to their home provinces. So in fact, the pattern of migration actually slowed relative to, as originally expected, and also compared to many of the more frequent surveys that were conducted. So the fact that now we are reticent to now use the latest censuses, it cuts both ways. It cuts in the way of that if we assume still with the metro migration patterns, but it also cuts the other way, is that, but what about those rural and less population density municipalities? So for those, I think, I hope I've answered. The non-payment of pension funds, just very quickly perhaps, is the fact that it should have all been identified and put a stop to or resolved through the audits and, if not, the control of personnel at the local government level. I hope that answers, Chair.
Over to you, Honourable Maimane.
Thank you very much, Honourable. And what I will request, Honourable Wakeling, I'm sure you might have additional questions later, but we'll see how we do for time. Can I just take Honourable Kamede? I don't want to split the Progressive Caucus, so please in the order that you go from President, Vice President 1, Vice President 2, and then you can work your way through the list.
You really want to become one of our deputy president, but you never did it.
I've applied. I've sent to Russia.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. And thanks thanks to the Commission for the report. The Commission's emphasis on the displacement effect of debt service costs is a powerful and critical framing of the current fiscal crisis. By highlighting that debt financing is, let me quote, direct first charge against the National Revenue Fund, unquote. The FFC effectively communicates that the crisis is no longer a distant solvency risk, but an immediate operational constraint on the state's ability to govern and invest. This perspective shifts the debate from abstract fiscal ratios to the tangible impact on service delivery, making the case for urgent debt stabilization more compelling for both peacemakers and the public. Honorable Chairperson, on the debt service versus development, given that the FFC observation is that rising debt service costs are displacing expenditure critical to public service delivery, what is the fundamental trade-off the government is willing to make between maintaining fiscal credibility by servicing debt and fulfilling its constitutional mandate to deliver essential services and invest in long-term economic growth like infrastructure, education, health, and other services? The last one, on accountability for infrastructural reform. The FFC repeatedly calls for comprehensive structural reforms to reverse the low growth trajectory. Below the technical recommendations, what specific measurable and time-bound accountability mechanisms can Parliament implement to ensure the executive not only commits to, but also delivers on the political difficult structural reforms, particularly those concerning the efficiency of public spending and the governance of state-owned entities? I would like to stop there, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. May I allow the Commission to respond? You will have about 7 minutes.
No, thank you so much, Chair. Maybe let me just comment on the question, and then I'll also hand over to the research team. I think the question or the sentiment rather from Honourable Gamede with regards to the debt service cost is actually very, very important, and maybe the policy stance or the policy position of how do we want to deal with that as a country. So we know that our National Treasury has made a clear fiscal stance to say that to reduce the debt service cost, we must maintain a primary budget balance. So in my previous comments, I have alluded to the fact that we might achieve that primary budget balance. But if we still have mushrooming debt service cost, it will erode that primary budget balance. So what needs to happen then is that we need to ensure that these debt service costs do not increase. So we must maintain the same debt and reduce it systematically so that we might eliminate that debt. But it remains a very precarious position because there are always intervening demands to the fiscal envelope, which come unexpectedly, and then the debt can also go up again. So the primary budget balance is a good way of dealing with it, but it is depending on a lot of things to keep to your targets, because we set a target. We know that in this MTBPS, government has set a target of achieving about 2.5% of GDP as a primary budget balance target. So we need to maintain that. Then we will be on a way to dealing with the debt service cost. But if we do not keep up or maintain our targets or live up to the market expectations, then these debt service costs will mushroom again, and they will erode whatever benefits we get from the primary budget balance. It will not make any difference because it will be almost like a sinking bucket. You know, we keep on, having this leaking bucket syndrome. So we must just make sure that we maintain our debt levels at a level that is that we can deal with and we can reduce it. So I just want to see now if the research team can also come in here. Chen, with your team.
Yes, Chair. So primary balance is like the EBITDA before tax, interest, and other transfers. So it's not good enough actually to just have a primary budget balance. What we need is a main budget balance that is after these interest costs. It's only looking at the main budget balance that one can then keep tab on the interest costs. The fundamental trait of governments is that, Honourable Chairman, there is a bit of a fiscal dumping that is currently taking place. And it's not just on the appropriations adjusted, but also in the divisional revenue bill amendments, because you will recall that between budgets 2.0 and 3.0, there was no change, right? We had 2.0 that increased the divisional revenue to local governments and provinces, and then by 3.0, taking away the VAT, but they didn't adjust the spending. Then come now in this budget, NDBBS with the adjustments, you saw there were even in-year increases to the provinces and local governments, said to be because of these transfers for education and health, which is true. It's the current main functions of provinces and provinces especially, but local government is through conditional grants infrastructure. But it means that it's adding layer upon layer, and then that's, I think, is without additional purpose or objective, it does look like a dumping. Same thing is happening with the state-owned enterprises. I hope that answers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other honourable members. Suffice to say, I just want to ask just a few quick questions. The first, I get the broad impression that we are operating within a constrained fiscal environment and tinkering our way through, hopefully, to some degree of growth. I'd like to ask maybe of the FFC, there's some key issues that are huge, and perhaps in preparation for the budget process in February, we can begin to think about those. The first is, you correctly raised the question of health, yet in your own slides, you indicate NHI funding. Now, the Department of Health itself has conceded that there's no such thing as NHI. And in fact, were we to allocate money towards NHI, we would then have to make NHI the highest budget item, even exceeding debt servicing costs, is their view. Now, I want to understand what the macro adjustments that we can do. And I tell you why my question is informed by that is because on one of the recommendations you made on the adjustment appropriations bill is that this idea of double dipping and fraud within the social grant system. Now, whilst I don't encourage fraud or double dipping, I would argue the biggest set of double dipping occurs between these if you like, agencies that government has and board positions that sit. Someone who defrauds the state for 2,000 Rand relative to someone who sits in multiple boards. I wonder whether we shouldn't start thinking about the world in that sense, that we've got these 177,000 people who work for agencies, and genuinely, many of them have delivered no relative value, yet the Minister of Finance is comfortable enough saying our cost-saving mechanisms in order to produce that primary budget surplus stems from the fact that we're going to deal with double dipping on social grants, or whilst I think the ghost worker conversation must take place, but I certainly think that the big issues speak to agencies. On another day, we can divide provinces, but equally so, it's issues such as SETAs. SETAs have become spaces where effectively the bang for buck doesn't seem to be delivering. I'd like to hear your views on that. And then we have in this conversation spoken a little bit about climate change or disaster relief that has been put on the table. Now, as a committee, this matter is becoming more and more, with now climate change not only becoming a central feature, but I think we must mature the discussion a little bit more, which is to answer the question, what is South Africa's green agenda, if I could put it that way? At some level, it's dealing with carbon-intensive projects. Now, Eskom are a huge contributor to that issue, but at the same time as that, you can't curtail Eskom's ability to stop its generative capacity, which in and of itself creates an environment upon which, once you say you're going to rely on developmental financing to be able to mitigate against Eskom's reliance on coal, and then asking for alternative energy supplies, in truth, those are not coming on board and certainly won't be the majority of our energy supply, at least within the next decade. So I'm just fascinated about this conversation about, whilst that is the reality we're going to deal with, when we deal with climate change financing and the just energy transition, which was a subject of the G20, I'm just interested to figure out how we help municipalities in this regard, because in truth, we're budgeting by incident rather than thinking about it in the long term. So a flood in KZN occurs, we appropriate some money and hope for the best. A bridge collapses, we appropriate some money and really hope for the best. So I do think it needs reform as a question. And I'd like to maybe invite whether or not the FFC would be very keen to look at the question of reforms to the budgeting process, because at this point in time, I do feel like our collective effort at tinkering isn't certainly going to deliver much. Now, on the provincial allocations, it's clear that there's been adjustments to the infrastructure grant, and money has been sent towards ECDs. But now the committee itself spent some time in the Eastern Cape looking at adjustments that spoke to the province's own ability to deliver infrastructure support. And so you find the Eastern Cape, for argument's sake, does not make any additional supply to school infrastructure, and you end up with schools in the Eastern Cape really left in dilapidated conditions. So whilst the strategic move as per Bella is important to deal with ECDs, I would argue rural infrastructure, and to be more specific, infrastructure that deals with the plight of poor South Africans who are largely black, is going to be something that I know the minister boasts that she's eradicated pit latrines, but when I look at what sanitation is adequate for South Africans, it certainly falls way short in this regard. And yet, fair enough, these are competing priorities, ECDs or infrastructure, but provinces don't seem to be allocating, particularly the Eastern Cape, additional of its own revenue or income towards that. And then the minister sort of hints that we are going to have a savings of, I think they mentioned a figure of 20 billion rand, which will avoid additional proposed taxes for next year. Whilst that's a conversation for the fiscal framework, I'd like to hear where the FFC is. It doesn't sit in the respective bills that are before us, but I would argue that when we look at next year, again, projecting what the future needs to look like, when we think about next year, I would worry whether the government might be thinking harder about what additional taxes it wants to levy on citizens, surely the corporate tax space is already overly subscribed and saturated. There's no room there. The only room I would imagine is for personal income tax. And if you're going to increase SRD, I almost can see us on about the 15th of February next year, mark my words, that we are going to be sitting here debating whether is it SRD or an additional 1% of VAT. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. And then I want us to wrap the meeting. So if you can take about, you don't have to answer all the questions, and certainly I will welcome some written submissions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chair. I'd like to check if Commissioner Fowler, if he's got any comments, and then the research team can come in.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to look at one particular matter that government is undertaking at the moment, and they did some research from the Bureau for Economic Research, which says that if South Africa continues on its same path, we would have about 1.3% growth. If we are able to ensure that there's higher household consumption, it would increase it by 1.6%. And from more investment will be approximately 2.4%. And then from the net trade, we have a net trade deficit of about 1.8 to 2%, which will end up with a 3.5% growth by 2029. This is what national government has been doing through Operation Vulindlela. And the idea there is to improve the state-owned entities to have better production, which could result, if you had improved energy availability and access to ports and railways, that by 2029 there could be a growth of 5%, so slightly higher. So I thought that maybe that context would be helpful in looking at what government's longer-term trajectory is. So in regard to the FFC's approach to that, would be that, I'm not going to answer all of the questions that Honourable Maimane put forward. But essentially to say that if we're on a path, and particularly this question of the balanced addressing interest and balanced approach, that the key question is to grow the economy. And if you grow the economy, you would then have impact in terms of ensuring that you are able to invest in infrastructure. Because currently the infrastructure spend is probably about, if I was to look at it from economic growth previously, is about 33% lower than it would have been in the past. That 33% lower now than it should be to kind of get us the growth at around 5%. And so with the approach that is being taken by government, there is a plan to address this, which perhaps the committee could ask national government, I suppose, through the Treasury, to kind of share that information with them, so that you could look at some of these issues. Perhaps some of the team could answer some of the other questions, and if need be, I could add a point or two on it. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Fowler. Chen, with your team, can you address some of the questions with your team?
Yes, Honourable Chair, first question. As you actually, through your deliberations and questions, you can see that there are many places in the overall fiscal framework and appropriations to the divisional revenue segments where money is there, allocated, appropriated, but deliverables missing, absent, or not of quality. So the best, and also prone to double dipping, duplications and wastages and so forth, including the CETAs, and then at all various levels of the government's, say, extremities of implementations. I think the best way, as is also in one of our recommendations in the past divisional revenue submission, is that sometimes the best way is to first terminate, restart. You remember that the Singaporean Prime Minister, long time late now, Lee Kuan Yew, he said that he would, if he sees inefficiencies and corruptions and collapses in governance, that he is of no mind at all to shut it down and restart again. And sometimes that's the only way to actually put it right again. Climate change, Honourable Chair, your point is it depends on where we are in terms of our agenda, where we are in terms of this climate change and also our industries. In order to set our agenda accordingly when we go out there to the world. The point why we say that is that through our research again, we find that our carbon emission is nowhere near any other developing countries out there in the world. And so it really doesn't make sense for us to be carrying as heavy a burden through these COP20, COP30, or any other agreements for green energy transitions that may be premature for us, and also definitely not fitting to our current industrial construct, because we are coal-based economy. And so it does not make sense for us to be paying those carbon emission taxes as much as some of the other clear heavy users of these fossil fuel based energy sources. And also not just that, but also that they have the technology for green energy transitions, not like us. We have to go and purchase from them for that. So what kind of reforms, Honourable Chair, as per our research, climate change financing and strategies, is that we need rather we're recommending for rather the reforms in the infrastructure developments to be climate adaptive and climate resilient and strategic in nature. What that means is that sometimes it can be as small as to make the electrical wires underground so that it's protected from the elements of the heat or of cold or of those climate change elements, things like that, or making all the light bulbs from halogen to LED so that it's more sustainable, more long-lasting, more reliable, things like that. It doesn't have to be that we have to spend now more money to sort of do away with our standpoint of industries and sacrificing all of that for a green initiative and other agendas that is of a foreign nature than our own. Just on one last point about infrastructure is that clearly we do need to be clear about what spheres of governments dealing with what kind of infrastructure in terms of the constitutional mandates. For instance, local governments, it deals with basic infrastructure, but not all of the basic infrastructure. For example, they can't build their own generators, but it's in the reticulation infrastructure of this basic infrastructure. You see, so it's very specific. If it's provinces, then it's about social service infrastructures, which is now doing more with buildings and human capital infrastructure. So it needs to be made clear for the implementation of it to be effective. Lastly, additional taxes, I think, through this year's experience and also with the macroeconomic analysis that FFC has done on the VAT and on the other macro indicators, I think as we always say, we do need to go back to the data. We do need to go back to the evidence. And I think that will serve us best in this admittedly fast-changing world of the world economy and then as well as local economic developments of our people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. I think on our side, we have exhausted the questions. If there's anything else that we've left out, we can always respond in writing. Over to you, Chair.
Chairperson, let me appreciate your presentation and the inputs that you have made. And certainly from an FFC point of view, I think given the constitutional mandate and submissions to budget, I think I've worked through your budget book that you proposed a while ago, and I think it'd be an important discussion to hold with the committee, perhaps maybe on a more structured workshop basis, that we can have a discussion really that looks at how the submissions are put together for the presentation starting before the budget cycle begins in the new year, so that we're not playing catch-up to information that in certain instances is outdated, and in other instances, really, the assumptions are not, the committee is not privy to some of the assumptions that are built in by National Treasury. But I genuinely appreciate our engagement. Thank you very much, Doc, and thank you to the team that is here, and of course to the Commissioner Fowler, who is here, and the team that is here. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Chair.
Let me just in terms of the committee's work, I just want to, by way of announcements, we have a delegation of MPs from Kenya who are coming to meet up with us. I've asked the Secretariat to send an invitation to members. I would like for members to indicate if they're able to join us. It will be a lunch with a number of MPs from Kenya to discuss some of their budgeting issues, etc. So that invitation will come out if members can respond accordingly to that. And then on another matter, we've received communication from our counterparts in Brazil, and so we will then be able to firm up with the committee the dates, but that process is ongoing. They've firmed up that they are reverting back to us about January late or early Feb. So those are the two prospective dates, but as soon as we've gotten further communication on that score, I will then put that to members. The last and most urgent thing that I require from members is, if you can, whatever submissions you need to make on the first report that has been sent to you that speaks to the issues of our oversight trip in the Eastern Cape. If members can make their submissions in writing to Mr. Makakula by Friday, we have a very busy couple of days, and so there are a couple of things that we're going to need to pick up on, and then that report will be tabled for adoption. So just by way of reminding members of activity, tomorrow we meet Denver. Can you confirm the venue for tomorrow? We'll be meeting, then we've got 2 presentations equally so tomorrow, and so we'll resume at 9 a.m. And then on Friday, we will then be taking public hearings in the afternoon, given that Parliament has its own program also on Friday morning. So we are really trying to play catch up in many of the activities that are there. Denver, can you let me know when the venue is for tomorrow?
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Tomorrow's meeting, Chairperson, will also be online on the virtual platform, and it's also scheduled to start at 9 a.m., Chairperson.
This way, members, please, it becomes one of these like bring your own bottle. So at the meeting, we can gather together, bring your own catering, and we'll call them virtual meetings that. Without any further ado, it is now 12:26. I want to move to close the meeting unless there are major questions. But let me thank honorable members. We will convene tomorrow at 9 a.m. on this platform. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Long live the chair.
Recording stopped.
Thank you, Chair.
Please, like.
Thank you, Chair.